This conference will now be recorded.
That was opening up the Wednesday, November 1st special session at 5:33 for the city of Port Orford. Let's see, we'll start with our roll call. Councillor Tidy.
Here.
Councillor Burns.
Here.
Councillor Pogwitz.
Tim here.
He is here electronically. Councillor Webb.
Webb present.
Councillor Velisis.
Here.
And Councillor Rask.
Here.
I don't even know how to say your name wrong anymore. I can't forget.
You got it. Excellent.
All right,
Thank you,
please
Scott.
join me for the.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That went well.
Yeah, that was a.
Okay, so there's no, so obviously we don't have any departmental reports tonight, but should we put citizen concerns and councillor concerns at the end of the agenda like we normally have it?
I think you could do citizen concerns first so they don't have to wait around and then.
No, that, yeah, but
Councillors can go
traditionally
through.
the concerns are for anything on the agenda, but then at the end of the meeting, they get a chance for considerations, which is anything they want to speak on pertaining to the city.
Maybe if there's anybody left.
Right.
Is it possible for the mics to be turned up a little bit?
Can you hear this?
We have to
Any
channel
better?
our inner
Okay.
karaoke singers.
Okay, so we will go right into citizen concerns. Please speak only for items on the agenda, and that starts with Jen Head.
Again, my name is Jen Head, 1437 Jackson Street. I'm here to speak about the idea of an exclusionary ordinance for the homeless camping ordinance. So one of my takeaways from the last meeting was that we should form a committee that had diverse members to explore this idea. We appreciated City Administrator Huddle's efforts to draft an ordinance. We did have a meeting on Monday and I was present. Perry Rask was there to represent the council. Andrew Perry was there, and Pat Ross for the community, Jen Bailey for the community. I was representing either the community or planning, and
Tanya.
And Tanya Miller from Neighbor to Neighbor, right? So we talked about this idea. We looked at a couple maps that Joseph printed out that had scales on them, and we feel like the distances that City Administrator Huddle used in his draft ordinance were not realistic for Port Orford. Anything in the, excluding camping in the residential zone excludes most of town, but then also to say no camping within 500 feet of the highway excludes the rest of town. So we felt like the exclusionary ordinance could be further explored using shorter distances that made more sense for Port Orford. And so we'd like to meet again, and we wanted to ask the council to give us another month to meet several times and explore this idea further. So we would come together with a proposal or a more solid plan at the next city council meeting. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
And Aaron Ashdown. Not President Ashdown. It's hard not to call you President Ashdown in here.
Yeah, I guess I have to call you mayor.
No, you don't have to call me.
My name's Aaron Ashdown. I guess the address would be 1637 Jackson Street in regards to what I was talking to. I know I hadn't been present at any of the prior meetings in regards to changes to the encampments and the needs to make those changes. I did talk to Administrator Hunnell just because other members of the public were just filling me and my brothers who also have property in that 17th and Washington Street area. So, you know, they're busy. I'm used to going to meetings and stuff, so I was just throwing their voice into the mix as well. You know, that area, I don't even think I don't know if you're considering it still on the table. You know, there's a lot of areas in Port Orford that are like dips and wetlands, and you know, it's kind of hard to see from aerial maps or just I think historic maps. You know, you got roads going through nothing, and you know, there's a lot of areas of Port Orford that are just gone by the wayside, and you know, I think some of us have taken advantage of that, and so us as the property owners, you know, we'd like to work with the city to you know, make sure some of those rights of way or, you know, ghost streets or whatever are, you know, don't go into disrepair and bad shape. So, you know, the one there on Washington, hopefully that's not under consideration anymore because it's there's a high traffic area and it does dip off into wetlands right there. So anyway, I'm just saying that, you know, as stakeholders in the conversation, you know, we'd appreciate, you know, a seat at the table if need be, if we are in those areas of consideration. So that's all I want to say.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone online that would like to speak? All right. Anyone else in the public? Come on up. Please state your name and address.
Dave
Yeah,
McCutcheon,
take your 3 minutes.
320 16th Street, and they're the big lot there between the triplex and the Port Orford Garage. So I'm glad to hear that we're doing this exclusionary zone thing. I think that's a great idea. One thing I wanted to mention is, as far as if we did have to come up with a location, it might be looking into. There's a lot of ground out there by the transfer station, and maybe the city can lease the ground at a reasonable price from CC&R if the city doesn't own anything out there already. You know, there's that seems to be an area in town where there's not really buildable because of the toxic water in the ground. My understanding, realtor wise, I've talked to realtors that say that's where the cheapest property is that's available, you know, because there's a plume of waste in the groundwater there. And I don't know what you have to do to actually solve this question, but I'm glad to hear that it's not going to be on Washington or Tishner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 3. We have a presentation to the council from Curry County Aquatic Safety. I think you all had a letter from Luke in front of you there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I just put that letter. That's kind of a post presentation. We'll talk about it at the end of the presentation discussion item I have for you for your next few months. So how's everybody doing? I'll wait for the slideshow. My name is Luke Martinez. I am from actually Pistol River, Oregon, but I work for the county, Curry County, and about 4 years ago, we started this program, Curry County Aquatic Safety. The program started off with a Resource Advisory Committee, or RAC grant from the Forest Service, but since then we've been sustained through grants and now through some sustainable funding through the county, through their the Travel Curry Coast, which is the county's destination management organization, DMO, the Oregon State Marine Board, which we're in a contract with for 5 years, and then the TSOC, which is Travel Southern Oregon Coast. And that's more of a regional destination management organization for the region.
Am I going too fast on the slides?
Yeah, just go. Actually, can you go back to the beginning? Yeah, thanks. So our mission statement again, is we provide public safety, resource protection, and visitor services to the south coast of Oregon, primarily on our waterways, shorelines of the county. So I'm going to show you a lot of photos. And I've got some stories for you to tell, so we'll make this enjoyable as much as possible. So I'll go to the next slide, please. So the county shorelines, we have about 100 miles of our coastline. We work about 5 days a week, sometimes more, and we primarily focus on our outreach and education. So we've been averaging around 7,500 contacts a year to our aquatic recreationists and shoreline users per year for the last 3 years. This is at Harris Beach, which I now call Huntington Beach. Next slide. So on a day-to-day, we see we go to a lot of popular places throughout the county. This being one of the a pretty hot spot, Natural Bridges. I don't know if you've all been there, but it's been a pretty hot spot. So on any day-to-day, I could talk to hundreds of people here from all over the country and world. State Parks has a meter that they have out there at Harris Beach that counts the day use visitors that come through. In 2020 and 2021, they're averaging 5 million day use visitors a year. That is tied the most in the state of Oregon with Yaquina Head. So you think about these 5 million day use visitors that are coming through Harris. They're not just going to Harris, they're coming up and down our entire coastline. Some of them I talk to, they stop at multiple spots. I'll get to this, but Battle Rock is a pretty popular spot, as you know. You got a lot of people coming in and out. There's a lot of people that are coming through our area. Next slide, please. Here's another popular spot. Spit it out if you know where that's at. That's Secret Beach. I guess you guys haven't been there. It's too secret. It's another popular spot within the county that I make a lot of contacts at, talking to people. Next slide, please. So again, we work 5 days a week. We primarily focus on weekends, busy holidays, and we also are working during beach hazard statements the National Weather Service puts out that you might be all aware of. Also during flood advisors or anything like that, we're on call for those events. Another popular place that we see on our shoreline here is at Ceridan. You guys right out in front. Speak to a lot of people in that region. Next slide, please. Another popular spot, there's a bunch of surfers in this photo, but you can't see them because they're on the right side of the photo getting cleaned out by a big set. But that's something that's been increasingly popular in your area. I remember as a high schooler coming up here and being able to surf, and there wouldn't be too many people, but now it doesn't seem like that anymore. It's become a mecca for aquatic recreation in the area, especially towards Hubbard's Creek. Next slide. We also make a lot of contacts on our waterways. Curry County, a lot of people don't know this, but Curry County we have 362 square miles of water within the county. That is the most water within a county in the entire state of Oregon. That's another fun fact if you didn't know that. A lot of that water here at Garrison Lake is right within your city limits. Next slide. We're on the Elk River quite a bit. Next slide. And the 6 is making contacts during your fall and winter fisheries. So our contract with the State Marine Board, we do a lot of their boating safety. So that's what we get onto the waterways and do a lot of that outreach and education. Next slide. Something that the program has worked over the last 4 years is our collaborative partners. And so within the county, we have made every single port, city, visitor center, government agency that has anything to do with our waterways or shorelines, we've tried to make them our collaborative partner. And we've been successful with that. If it's not for monetary reasons, but just for workflow. We're so small communities here and small entities. And so it's really important for us to all work together as much as possible. Here's a nice shot. I just like this shot because this was, I think last January, you guys closed the port, I think during this day, or you closed the dock because there was a huge high surf warning that we had in effect. And so anyways, but we work closely with our collaborative partners, making sure that people are educated on what's going on, especially our visitor centers, on speaking with people, keeping them educated and our partners as well on what's going on. Next slide.
Boy, that made the Alice Faye look big.
So like I said, we provide outreach education. We've been averaging 7,500 contacts a year. The other thing that we collect data on is what we call preventative actions or preventative measures. Anybody know where this is at?
Natural Bridge.
Yes, there we go. Natural bridges. Like I was saying before, spend some time there. A big part of our program is we would like to be proactive. Our whole goal is to prevent accident or injury or death before it happens, right? So when we see things like this, we're usually immediate contact, getting to people to talk to them to make sure they're educated on what's going on. Next slide, please. So here at Paradise Point, which this is probably a familiar sure to a lot of you guys. Pulling up Paradise Point, we got people on the near shoreline. We have this particular day, I think there probably was a sneaker wave warning in effect. Doesn't seem like it, the ocean's pretty calm, but every half hour, maybe a bigger set comes through. So in cases like this, there's children in this photo, so they're immediate contacts for the program. So we're out there making sure those people are all right. Next slide. Here's another slide. I think this is at Cerriton. Somebody's not facing the ocean, which is you hear that a lot. Don't turn your back on the ocean. Next slide. So I will talk a little bit more about the preventative actions, and I'll give a story. And these are the next kind of photos that go with this. So our preventative actions are if we have to make contact or a verbal action on a group or people to remove them out of harm's way before something could possibly happen to them. It's kind of an interesting metric. It's like, well, is it a life saved? According to the USLA, the United States Life Saving Organization, it is. You make a preventative action, you possibly could be saving somebody's life. So this, like I said, per year, we've been averaging about 200 of these, 200 preventative actions a year. From the point of Paradise Point to Humbug, we're been averaging close to 50. So I'll give the story here, go through the photos. This story was one of the first preventative actions we had on the program. The day we actually started, there was a high surf advisory in effect. So as at Humbug, the case was there was a family that was there visiting, and they were in the Humbug State Park. Next slide. And this picture is not taken on that day, but it's the exact action. When I came around the corner, I saw a mother, two women and two children walking towards the beach access point, and they had life jackets on, which I thought was interesting. So I turned around as quickly as I could and got down to the beach and ran down to the beach. And as I got down there, it kind of looked like this scene, except I was already down there. And the two children were walking out at Humbug down to the ocean. So I got their attention, yelled at them. I think I scared them because they ran back to their mothers. They got up there and I told them what was going on and that we had a high surf advisory in effect and that, their kids were about to go swim into the water. What they didn't know, they were from Colorado. It was the first time they ever been to the Oregon coast, and they had no idea that there was a high surf advisory or there was any danger. But it looked like this. Next slide. The thing about Humbug is some of you see that usually when we have big surf events, right down there in the middle of the beach, there's a rip current that's running kind of sideways through the photos. A rip current that goes about a mile and a half out to sea. Now, if those kids had gotten in the water, would they have been stuck in that rip and pulled a mile and a half out to sea? We don't know. But that's what our preventative actions are, is we're trying to prevent something that happened before it happens. Next slide. When accidents do happen, we have gone to the lengths of being trained and are running under guidelines from the Oregon State Marine Board and the USLA, the United States Life Saving Association, to be able to respond. Next slide. In the county, in the last 3 years, we've had over a dozen rescues while we've been at a scene. So they usually happen in front of us. This particular one happened out in front of the rogue boater that went out over the bar and unfortunately capsized his boat, but we got him to shore and he was okay. I was holding on to that life jacket, so I had to take a photo of that the next day because that literally saved his life. Next slide. What we're trying to prevent is this. in Nelly's Cove. There's a lot of resources on the ground there. There's a lot of resources. That's a lot of money that costs to go to these scenes. And so that's what we're trying to focus on, is preventing these and preventing the amount of resources that it takes to respond to these situations. Next slide. The other thing we do is we get to go to the public schools, which is a highlight of the work. We first initially started just in Curry County, covering all 3 school districts. Here's at Driftwood. And now, most recently, have moved into Coos County as well. But in the last 3 years, we've taught over 4,000 students water safety education in the public schools. Next slide. Here's at Pacific High School. So we've been with Port Orford and Pacific all 3 years, getting into the schools and teaching them water safety curriculum. It all stems from the State Marine Board. A lot of it has to do with cold water immersion. Most recently, we've been playing some fun games that are associated with our junior lifeguard program that I'll talk about here. Next slide. The other thing we do is we try to keep our local public educated too, and provide resources for them. Anybody recognize anybody in here? Act for our public, giving them, for instance, this is a first aid CPR course that was taught at the OSU field station. We collaborated with ACVA, Oregon Coast Visitors Association, and the field station, so we could provide a wilderness first aid and CPR course for our residents. Next slide. We're working right now. This is going to plug this. This is a free first aid and safety training for commercial fishermen that's going to be held down in Brookings at the Coast Guard station there, and it's free as well. So they're looking for commercial fishermen for this. The other programs we're working to offer are a swiftwater rescue for private boaters and guides in the area that we'll probably host this spring. And then we'll probably host another wilderness first aid class for residents in the area. Next slide. Infrastructure projects. We've talked to the port about this in the city. We've been putting up life jacket loaner stations throughout the county, a rapid fire. I think we've got 5 in the works right now. This one's down at Loeb State Park and was put up this last May. Next slide. The other thing is we're working with the ports on infrastructure projects. Here's a kayak launch that was donated to the Port of Gold Beach from TSOC. They put that in. So we try to work with as many of the ports or municipalities we can on any infrastructure projects that are related to our aquatic areas, recreation areas. Next slide. So now I want to talk a little bit more about our workforce development. The last 2 years, we hosted our junior lifeguard program, which is our workforce development. The first year was here in the Port of Port Orford and Battle Rock State Beach, where we had 23 students from 9 to 17 that were from Port Orford to Gold Beach, were the most students the first year. And they spend a week learning about first aid, CPR, water safety rescue techniques, and their ocean environment. It's a pretty amazing week that they get to be involved with. This last year, next slide, we grew the program and hosted another program down at Harris Beach in Brookings. The Port Orford session this year, next slide, had over 40 students, and the Harris Beach session had 23. Next slide, we are really proud of this program and are hoping it's just going to grow. This year we had students all the way from Salem, Coquille, Bandon, Coos Bay, Port Orford, Brookings, and Gold Beach. One from Smith River as well. We're all the students. Next slide. This was taken at the port. Next slide. Port Beach. Can you play this? I wonder if this was done by Damian Hawthorne. I thought it was pretty amazing. If you press on that play down there.
Trying to get it there. There we go.
Yeah.
It's not the best mouse.
This was, shot by Damian. This was the final day that we call the Iron Challenge that the students participated in. all the students in the Iron Challenge was a run, swim, paddle combo that kind of tested all their skills throughout the week. And so they got to do this as their final day. We invited parents to do it as well, which some did. You had some Port Orford parents there that did it as well. So it was pretty awesome day. Anyways, this is a great video shot by Damien. He did that in like 10 minutes, so I was pretty impressed at his video editing skills. Yeah. Next slide. So I'll talk about the next steps of the program. So with our workforce development, the junior lifeguard program, our next step is in the next couple of years, our aides that come out of the junior lifeguard program will then go to a qualifying event down in California with one of our collaborative partners, California State Parks, their lifeguard division, where they'll go to a qualifying event. And if they qualify, we'll send one or two of them to, next slide, please, to an 8-day, very intensive open water lifeguard program. After, next slide, please. After the programs, those students will come back and then will be certified open water lifeguards that the program will then hire on as seasonals. Next slide, please. Next slide. The ultimate goal here is that once these students are established, we're also trying to establish another position that is based out of Port Orford that covers the North County sector of the county, and then also into Coos County. So we're in talks now with our collaborative partners up north, our tourism entities in the Coos County, to what that would look like to have somebody that was based out of Port Orford, and we're able to cover the northern portion of Curry County and also into Coos County. So that's next steps for our program and the growth of the program, and that's also an open workforce, I guess, for our junior lifeguards as well. Next slide. So I appreciate your time. It was a selfie that somebody wanted to take with me. At the end of the day, most of the people that we're talking to, 90% of the people we speak to are tourists, people that are visiting through the region. And so we're out there providing all types of different information, if it be where do we eat, where do we stay, what kind of plan is that, you know, where am I going, what am I doing? It doesn't matter. We're there as a basically boots on the ground, proactive mobile visitor center is how I'm kind of characterizing it. As I spoke before, our sustainable funding right now is coming through the county, Travel Curry Coast, and through the Oregon State Marine Board. This year's budget, we've also have the TSOC funding, and we've received funding through the city of Gold Beach. What I'm doing now is going to all the port districts and the municipalities in the county, and I'm asking that the municipalities invest into the program for 2 fiscal years. And so what I've got a kind of a written proposal that you all have a copy with. And so what I'm asking is that the municipalities discuss that, and as your budget cycle comes up, putting the program in to your budget for the 24-25 and 25-26 budget cycles. What we do try to tie into is we try to tie into the TLT, the transient lodging tax. Why? Because we provide visitor services. And so when you have your discussions, I just want you to think about that. And that's pretty much been how we've provided our sustainable funding is through that revenue fund. I thank you for your time. I had a lot of photos. Nobody dozed off, which is impressive. So
A little bit, trying not to.
yeah.
That's how I Thank think. you.
Yeah.
That's
So yeah, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, contact is on there. But I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Any questions?
Excellent.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
for your
Luke.
presentation.
Thanks, Luke.
Can't
Okay,
imagine a better
so,
person being our ambassador, our mobile visitor center. Thank you.
Oh, hey, Luke, did you get a kiosk with life jackets up at the boat ramp on,
Pinehurst.
which one? Were you working on one to get 12th Street? 12th
Yeah,
Street.
we're still in discussion. Yeah, so that's something that's still, yeah, that we would like to continue to talk about. Yeah, and I know that the Oregon State Marine Board is tied into that as well. And I've had discussions with them. So yeah, that in terms of a non-motorized boat lounge, correct? Yeah. So yeah, whenever you guys are ready for that, just let me know and we can make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I get a quick consensus or like note that for our budget discussion this year. I mean, obviously we have the staff is going to answer the hard questions for us on that. So, okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to item 4, time, place, and manner revision for the homeless camp. And, you know, just because some changes have been made, it seems like some things are going pretty well right now, and we've heard some things that are going on. So I would entertain a motion to table this until
If
we.
I may, I would like, so we discussed before appointing a committee and there, I don't understand, apparently there's different types of committees, but an informal committee was formed and I think that we should make it a formal committee.
I agree.
So how do we do that?
Well, so that would
Be a
mean
motion?
that the city is agreeing to take this on,
Oh.
or that we're taking more of a role, is what you're asking?
No, to let them investigate this and come back to us with their recommendations.
So could I, Mr. Mayor? Thanks. So I'll just give some introductory comments. This stuff came out of our last meeting where we were sort of exploring 2 options. And so this is just a continuation of that. I appreciate the credit from Ms. Head or what I had done, but actually she mentioned Tanya Miller. Tanya Miller provided me with the example of the time, place, and manner. So I basically just used what she gave me to present to council for discussion points. And then tip of the hat to Mr. Ashdown. I was looking for spots. You know, we had the 15th Street, we had the car care, and I looked at the aerial and I thought, well, here's a place where there's some people, but he called me up and explained to me that, look, that's actually a paved road going through there. Your other places don't have a road going through there. We have trucks and we do stuff. And then he said there's also wetlands. So, and then I did have a conversation with Chief Hobart, and he actually suggested a do nothing option because of the current situation seems to be working, but but I don't know. So really, and the committee, if you're saying we should make a city committee or we just let them be a committee and come talk to us, you know, there's no prohibition against citizens looking at things and coming and talk to us under citizen concerns. So however you want to do that, those are the options. But if you want to make it a formal committee, yeah, then we would be, you know, putting resources and taking ownership and that kind of thing. So those are the considerations to think about.
My thinking, where I thought we ended last week, whatever it was that we would, it would be a committee comprised of pretty broad, diverse, or, you know, members of the community, but that it would be to inform council. It would be to give recommendations to council, and it wasn't for any other reason. I don't know if that.
Well, in that case, it is my understanding that if there is a committee that does things to give advice to a local public body, then that committee has to follow the public meeting and records law and advertise and make accommodation and give notice and those kind of things. And so that's a pretty big undertaking. I mean, we just are finally today doing something with the emergency committee, which was a committee that was kind of like a committee by oral directive only. And then we said, we got to formalize it. So what, if you're talking about, you want us to.
I think Mr. Mayor can appoint members of the, whoever that subcommittees are put together as the mayor appoints, and like your lump it, that's the way it works.
What about the watershed group? Now that's
They are not I've talked to Linda Tarr, and they are not a committee of the city. They are
so couldn't this group be the same thing?
Yeah, they could be their own group. It would be, yeah. So they could just be their own group and they could come talk to us at any time they felt like it.
And I appreciate it. Sounds like they have really taken to heart. It sounds like that group really took to heart to make sure there are diverse members involved, which is really cool. Really appreciate that. And so, I mean, just one of the things that we've, I think, all experienced is that the more bureaucracy, the harder it is. So having an ad hoc committee seems like it could be a good way to go if you feel comfortable
Oh,
with that.
absolutely.
I'd also like to say, I really think that the last meeting we came out of it really feeling like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't have the camp. And then the enforcement seems like it's really worked. I mean, Gary mentioned to me that he talked to Terry at Ray's, who is super stoked about things working better. So if we continue the current policy that we already have in place and see how that goes, and then maybe the committee can also see how it goes and see if there's other ideas. I mean, to me, it just seems like we're in a much better place than we were.
And I guess that's where my brain was landing on it, is there was a committee, we are gaining a little bit of ground, and just to table it until they come back to us, you know, and not a month or whenever, but whenever that group comes with a presentation, they can do a presentation to council, at least, you know, to start the conversation with us. Because the biggest thing I don't like after conversation is this really is something that should have a lot of public, you know, interaction. And are we going to be able to get that public interaction? You know, half of me is landing on start with the presentation. We have a group of people that wants to work on it. We start the presentation and then the council can take it from there and roll with it. But also it might have a lot of merit to have as much public input for that presentation as possible.
That's a good point.
But I mean, there's pretty good representation from what it sounds like.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And I think we can gain. It's just,
So are you represent
I
yourself?
represent city.
No,
And I'm the
no.
liaison.
So how do we, so we have a, I don't know,
she's been appointed as the
is
liaison
that what
already.
it is? Okay, so you're the liaison.
She was the liaison to neighbor to neighbor.
Right, to neighbor to neighbor.
Right.
And this committee has several people from there on it.
Right.
Right.
One person, right? Isn't it Tanya?
Right
And
now,
then-
Tanya and Lauren. Lauren was just out of town.
Right, okay, right.
Yeah, and we'd really have to look at the wordage on when we appointed her as the liaison. Was it to N2N or for the homeless camp situation?
Volunteered last time to be the representative of the 5 to come back to us to give us.
Right.
So maybe we should adjust that to be the issue. I mean, I don't think maybe we did make a motion to appoint her. Maybe we should make an adjustment to appoint you not to be the
Go ahead.
liaison to end, but be to the liaison to the community working group on this issue or something.
Sure.
So
I don't-
thank you. Just a question. And again, technically, I think the agenda item is to consider the two. I mean, of course, it's to consider it's to consider revising the existing code, and it might be based on how things are working right now to, again, not revise the existing code at this time tonight, and just, as the mayor suggested, table this until someone comes back to you with something. And so that would be an appropriate motion.
And I'll make a motion to table this topic.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that?
Is that to table means forever?
Until it's brought off the table.
Okay.
So it's not coming
All right,
back at a
all right.
definite
So
time.
not bringing it back next month.
Okay, any discussion on that? All right, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Pogwitz?
Jim, yes.
Counselor Rask?
Harry, yes.
Counselor Burns?
Burns, yes?
Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Counselor Velisis?
Yes.
Okay, number 5, ordinance 2023-28, revised DEQ loan agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Just wanted to let you know that this is it's a revisitation. It was in your packet, but essentially what happened was we've got the loan agreement with DEQ. We had authorized a resolution for a loan agreement, and the terms of that loan agreement were that we would pledge our sewer revenues as a guarantee of payment. But we had already had a loan with DEQ that pledged our sewer revenue payment. And so USDA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what happened is the USDA and the DEQ got together and talked, and then the DEQ came back with revised language that we would secure theirs not with sewer revenues that the USDA already has, but with our full faith and credit, which means other than the sewer revenues for USDA, the DEQ would get paid before everyone. The thing about that is it's little risk to us because David Johnson had already looked at the loan terms first when we approved the agreement. The loan payment and the payment terms of the agreement aren't changing. So he has looked at this and he's confident that we're not really at risk on the loan payment schedule by changing the language. Nevertheless, there are some statutory hoops we have to jump through, one of which is you have to listen to me read this thing in full at the city council. And then
This whole, like, numerous pages? No.
I hope there's only 3, right?
That's numerous.
It is the number 3. You are correct, sir. So I'm just going to go through this as quickly as I can. These were also posted in 3 conspicuous places around the city of Port
We
Orford.
have to make a move.
Well, yes, I was wondering if you wanted me to read it first and then make a motion on it, or vice versa, however you want to do it, because I don't know if you can move to adopt it without me reading it first.
Well, isn't that Robert's rules? You make a motion.
It's usually make a motion. Isn't it?
Okay.
I make a motion that we adopt ORD 2023-28, the revised DEQ loan agreement.
Second that.
Okay.
And it's to adopt, it's not to move it to a first reading or anything like that?
This is, so because we posted it and we're reading it in full, it can be adopted at a single reading, but that's why we have to do the reading in full to adopt it as single reading. An ordinance of the city of Port Orford, Oregon, amending and supplementing resolution 2023-13, authorizing the authorized representative to negotiate, execute, and deliver a clean water state revolving fund loan agreement in an amount not to exceed $826,015 to finance the purchase of a forested parcel of 160 acres to protect the water quality of the city, authorizing such other agreements, certificates, and documents as may be necessary and appropriate to carry out such transaction and related matters. Whereas the Common Council, the Council of the City of Port Orford, the city has determined that it's in the best interest of the city to purchase a forested parcel of 160 acres in the North Fork Hubbard Creek watershed to protect the water quality of the city and to meet the city's current and future water treatment requirements. The project, and whereas the city approved resolution 2023-13 on June 29, 2023, the resolution pursuant to the applicable provisions of ORS 287A.150, the act, and to enter into a loan with the State of Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, Clean Water State Revolving Fund in an amount not to exceed $826,015, half of which will be forgiven upon completion of the project. The 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan to refinance the project. And whereas ORS 468439 authorizes the city to borrow money through the Oregon DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund, notwithstanding the limitations on indebtedness contained in the city charter, and whereas this ordinance amends and supplements the resolution to satisfy requirements of ORS 287A.150 and ORS 468.439, and whereas the terms and conditions of the loan, including providing for required reserves and establishing covenants, including a debt service coverage requirement as applicable, will be evidenced by the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan agreement R 74101, the loan agreement, and whereas the city finds and determines it's the best interest of the city to enact this ordinance and to authorize the authorized representative defined herein to negotiate, execute, and deliver the loan agreement and such other agreements, certificates, and documents as may be necessary to provide for the financing of the project. Now therefore, be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Port Orford, Oregon as follows. Section 1, authorization of the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. The council authorized the authorized representative to execute and deliver the 2023 Clean Water loan in an amount not to exceed $826,015. The city hereby ratifies its prior findings and determination that the financing of the design and construction of the project is in furtherance of the purpose of the city and is in the public interest. Section 2, authorized representative. The council authorizes and directs the city administrator or his designee, each as an authorized representative, each acting individually, to execute and deliver the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan and to take such other actions as are set forth. Section 4 herein. Section 3, security. The council authorizes and pledges the city's full faith and credit taxing power within the limitations of Article 11, Section 11, and 11B of the Oregon Constitution to secure payment of and to repay the amounts due under the loan agreement from all lawfully available funds of the city. Section 4, delegation for establishment of terms and sale of the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. In connection with the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan and the execution and delivery of the loan agreement, the authorized representative is hereby authorized on behalf of the city and without further action of the council to negotiate, execute, and deliver a loan agreement that, among other things, sets forth the final terms, covenants, representations, and agreements determined by the authorized representative to be necessary and appropriate in connection with the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan and consistent with intents and purposes set forth in this ordinance. B, established funds and accounts as may be necessary or required in connection with the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan, which funds or accounts shall be continually maintained except as otherwise provided for so long as the 2023 DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan remains unpaid. Approve, execute, and deliver any other agreements and documents and take any other actions may be necessary to provide for the financing of the project. Section 5, effective date of this ordinance. This ordinance shall take effect 30 days after this adoption by the city council. First read in full and by title this first day in November 2023. To be approved by the mayor and attested by Joseph Harrison, Recorder Pro Tem.
You lost me in the middle. Could you read that again?
I think you could have possibly with some training have a career as an auctioneer.
That's Pat Ross. We know that. Anyway,
It's
so
like he's quiet and mellow all the time just for those moments when he can do his auctioneer banter. What do you call them, yodelers?
auctioneers.
Auctioneers. I thought there was a better term than that.
I just
So yeah, there has a motion and a second on the table. Is there any discussion on that before I call for the question?
I just want to really say thank you to John for sorting through this quagmire of legal difficulty and finding the right person to help us walk through this, what turned out to be a more complicated path than anyone quite realized. Part of it has to do with the fact that we are the first city to use this type of funding to do this kind of project. And so anyway, we're a little bit of a guinea pig, and thank you, John, for sorting it out.
And a tip of the hat to you. And I think you were the one who kind of came up with the concept, right? You're in.
Well, Linda did,
Okay.
and the Watershed Council
Sure.
did, but I'm trying to
Help to carry the torch.
help carrying the torch
Big time
through
torchbearer.
with everyone here. Yeah. Thank everybody for your support.
All right, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Webb.
Webb, yes.
Counselor Tidy.
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz.
Tim, yes.
Counselor Rask.
Harry, yes.
Counselor Velisis.
Yes.
Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Okay, now moving on to number 6, I would entertain a motion to accept ordinance 2023-29 for the Lightspeed franchise renewal.
So move.
Second.
All right, got a first and a second. Any discussion or staff reports that you want to throw out
Unless
there?
there's questions.
Okay, well, I will call for the vote then. Counselor Pogwitz.
Tim, yes.
Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Counselor Webb.
Webb, yes.
Counselor Tidy.
Yes.
Counselor Velisis.
Yes.
And Counselor Rask.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, on to number 7. We're probably gonna slow down a little
Slow
bit here. And this is resolution 2023-30, city recorder planner job description and salary.
Could I give a staff report?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So again, this is, to me, comes off of the council's checklist, as well as where they wanted to look at job descriptions and whatnot. And I did send out the job descriptions to the council, but I don't think I included in that a planner job description because I couldn't find one. So what I did is I looked for other planner job descriptions. And then I updated the city recorder job descriptions from ours and from other city recorders. What this is trying to do is further the organization of the city staff. Last meeting, we passed out the org chart that showed, the different roles that people are doing in our office, and again, we talked about Joseph at the last couple of meetings ago, trying to get him paid for working out of class because he was hired as like an accounting assistant and something else, assistant to the city administrator, which I don't think there really was ever a job description for that. And so he hasn't been doing either of those jobs since coming here. He's been doing our planning and our recording, at least since I've been here. And so we made a motion to officially make him the recorder. And I think the planner, recognized working out of class for doing the planning duties. And there was a lot of, the council voted to approve it, but I don't think it was unanimous. And I think the folks who just weren't ready to vote for that wanted to know more about, the value of the position and those kind of things. And so I put some time into that. I found it's a 2021 wage study from, I think, Coburg, which is up, I think, by Eugene, but it included the city of Drain, which I think it included Drain, which is similar in size to us. Let me see if it included Drain. So, and then some other cities which were sort of close. So I mainly tried to use Drain. And then I also looked at City of Gold Beach, City of Bandon, Brookings, and Curry County for the planners. And Curry County doesn't use a recorder. They've got that elected clerk and whatnot. But anyway, so I looked at some of those jobs and came up with a hybrid position for a planner recorder based on, the work done. Interesting during this, and this has been ongoing. There was actually, from Jessica's time here, I have access to her emails, and she was a member of the Oregon Association of Municipal Recorders, and one municipal recorder signed recorder/planner, and I said, hey, we are developing a job description for that. Do you have your job description and salary survey? And she said, we are woefully behind in that task and all this stuff. So I had to kind of just go by scratch, but I found the 2021 wage study. I thought it was pretty well done. It was done by a company. Well, it's a League of Oregon Cities, has a local government personnel institute. And so they did it. It was pretty comprehensive. I looked at those numbers and I, did the map as you saw there. I sent it off to Corey at the union. He didn't have any opposition to it, at least not to date. And so really, I came up with this salary schedule. I sent it off to David in our finance department to look at, and I think he said he didn't have any real quibble with it. So really, I'm happy to entertain questions. I tried to lay it out as well as I could in the memorandum. If you have questions on the memorandum or anything I said or anything in the supporting documents, I'd be happy to answer them.
Real quick, John, since it's a 50-50 thing, all he's going to be doing then, or you know what I mean? Be 45-45 and then have a 10%,
well,
because of the union, only because of the union thing. That's all I'm asking.
Good. Really good question. So with the union thing, we have some management prerogative, and then I believe I included in the job description, hopefully, other duties as assigned. And so that's typically what we allow for flexibility and for management prerogative, notwithstanding the union agreements. And I did send it off to Corey to look at. Corey is Corey Finnegan at the Teamsters 206 group.
Can you guys, excuse me, can you just back step and just explain that a little bit better? Because I wasn't totally following why this thing about the 10% in the union, and because I'm not as familiar with that stuff. If you can just
look on here, it says the job duties 50% planner, 50%,
Yeah.
Since it is union,
Yeah.
these employees are, it's maybe if it doesn't in their job description, if they work out of
Okay.
the job. That's what
Got
I'm
it.
trying to
Okay.
say.
So you're
That's what I was trying to say.
Because it's tying in with that wording out of class.
The wording,
Okay.
just the wording.
Right.
Like
And so
Thank you so much for helping me.
It is
understand.
included in there in the city recorder, other duties as assigned. It's on the top of page 27. It's the last bullet point there. So right, we try to give ourselves a little flexibility and maintain our management prerogative for assigning work duties. But the real thing for me of this is the fairness to this particular employee who's been doing a job, and a planner job, for those of you who don't know, yes, you can do it without a college degree, but very often when you look at these job descriptions, they're looking for a 4-year degree person. Joseph does have a 4-year degree. It's not in planning, but he's shown an aptitude for this. He's been working closely with our contract planner, senior planner, old planning director, contract planning director, Crystal Shoji. She really has expressed to me that he's doing very well and he's really good at it. It's been my experience as well. I work with them closely here on our, we have these things called planning clearance forms for building permits. We've worked on some subdivisions. We've worked on some partitions. So I think he's doing, solid planning work and should be compensated accordingly. And planners, as you can see, the wage salary just shows, what they are paid. And so I didn't, these aren't numbers that I felt like they should be. They're from a salary survey report. Again, it's 2021. I didn't even really try to adjust up for 2 years. So because I think we have a built-in, I don't know what you want to call it, but we have a built-in, I guess, decrease or something for being in Port Orford. I would say that, we might be catching up to a 2021 other place perhaps. So I felt like, I made the Port Orford adjustment downward, I suppose, or time-wise. So really nothing fancy, just numbers. But also there was something, after the council did direct me to pay him out of class and recognize the work, but we're uncertain because they didn't have the values of the work being done. And I think that's it here. But I wrote a memo to our payroll clerk to do it, and she didn't do it. And she said it was because she talked to some elected officials who she got the impression they told her not to. So I question that. And so I'm really need to know if anyone here has told our payroll clerk not to pay Joseph is working out of class. And I gave her the memo, I gave her the council resolution and everything. So I don't know. And otherwise I'll tell her that there is nobody holding that up and she needs to do it. So
I don't think anybody was holding her up. I think the only thing that we said, because it's probably referring to me and Ann, was we were still talking about it and we were unsure. So, but I mean, I just got to be careful because it's hard when people come, you know what I mean, that with the communications. But
I remember that conversation as she explained that she disagreed with the resolution that we took. And so I think we listened to that. I mean, I don't remember saying
yeah, you're
we
nay.
disagreed with it.
I have a couple things. I'm wondering about some of the comparisons you're comparing with cities that are quite a bit bigger than ours. And
Yeah.
I would think if we just use cities up to 1,500, 1,600 people, that would be a lot more appropriate.
Good. I might not have printed out that page. You've got the page there for, I mean, I know they've got, is it Drain in there and then Coburg? I think the numbers are close to the Drain numbers.
But you picked the highs and lows, so the highs would end up coming from the cities with pretty big populations.
Well, okay, it looks like I used Brownsville, Coburg, Junction City, and Curry County. So,
Junction City has 6,200.
okay.
Cresswell's 55.
So,
I mean, I'm just saying that, and then I'm pretty sure we have a planning director that's Crystal, so Joseph would be our assistant.
right, he'd be, okay, so this is called Planner 1, I think is what the concept is. And Planner 1 is entry-level planner. And those were the type of jobs I looked at.
I think Joseph has been doing an awesome job, and I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but I'm just feeling like how that compares to the other employees and whether we're creating a problem.
Yeah. Well, and we are changing a little bit because traditionally we had the clerk that did the planning, reception and that, and then we kind of branched off into fleshing that out a little bit. Or, when Joseph got here, he moved into that position. Then there were transitions, but are we paying even more? Like half again is more with this new position as we were because we have Crystal?
Well, okay, yeah. I like what Gary brought up about just the difference in pay to the rest of, you know what I mean? The rest of the people in the offices and public works too. You know what I mean? Like that's what it seems like it's such an egregious are we doing this to everyone else? Is everyone else, are we in talks to pretty much adopt a pay raise right away?
That is an angle.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I feel like, let's just say Public Works. You've worked at the water plant for 5 years and you're not making what Joseph's gonna make just tonight, just making it. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just trying
It
to.
makes you wonder, like, if we need more comparison of how
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm trying to get
recorder
at.
or the planner
And
compares.
I love what we've gotten from Joseph, and I think it's something we need to do. I'm just trying to figure out if is it going to be like a gross egregious, like just setting us up for adding way more money to everyone else, which is fine. I think we need to do that anyways.
Well, I think that is, and I know you say way more, but I do believe that probably every position here is,
Is on the lower end,
Yeah,
and I understand that, but we're on the lower end because of the city. I mean, we just don't have
Yeah.
that much.
Right.
I wanted to just get a clarification on the number that we're using for comparison, because there's like numbers that are like monthly numbers or it's hourly numbers. And so I'm trying to understand, get a grip on for this purpose of comparing with others, is it the hourly wage that's useful to compare, or the monthly?
Well,
What's helpful?
the monthly, based on 4 40-hour weeks. So you take the monthly and divide by 160 and you get an hourly. That's how the math I did.
And so like some of the things I know when we've been talking about other wages that we've had to discuss, we've kind of been comparing it with that hourly wage with what is commensurate to other positions. And I think one thing that we need to be aware of is in the past when we had Patty here doing both of those jobs, we had like one planning application a year. I mean, it was very easy for her to squeeze it in. And since, I mean, maybe I'm overstating it that it wasn't easy. I don't know if it was easy for her to squeeze it in, probably comparatively. Now we have, I mean, I know right before COVID, we were having like 17, or I mean, we have a huge number. So the job is going up. And
Could I? Well, I just want to help you out there, or not help you out, but the other thing when you get the applications is you have more planning commission meetings, and that's the other part of that job is, putting together an agenda and doing the minutes and attending the meetings. So I think we've also had more planning commission meetings since the time you're talking about as well.
Right. Okay.
And that brings the other side of the coin of what I was saying is the city hasn't had a planner for a long time, or excuse me, a recorder. And I have always thought that that was a super important position since we're like trying for communication and tying, like having someone to tie that together is something we haven't had, of someone actually taking all the committees and having that, finger on the pulse. So that is something like a whole different part of the equation that we haven't really touched on yet. And it's a big, huge part of this. I think that the recorder is more important than the planning part of it. But
Way more important.
Didn't Terry and Jessica both, they were our
they
recorders?
did, but that's also kind of lines up with when our communication started to falter. And before that, we had one person that did all the minutes and tied everything together. And it's a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
So I just throwing that out there that like we are focusing on the comparisons, but we got to make sure and remember that the planning, the recording portion of it is super important.
Are you still the recorder currently right now?
So
On paper?
what I've had the council, what the council did was help me out because I'm technically by position being the recorder. But if you remember, I asked for you guys in that ordinance or the resolution, we had Joseph B. appointed the city recorder pro tem so that we have both a recorder and a recorder pro tem now, but I'm not doing the recording. So the recorder does.
Is trying to figure it
Yep.
out.
The problem is with on the minutes, this council approved minutes last month. I voted against them that didn't say anything about pro tem. And if you look back through, you'll see pro tem one time in all of the previous minutes, and that's made by the recorder. So this is exactly the kind of things that can get you in trouble. And we can't have, the recording is everything to the city, everything. The planning, this and that, I know it's important, don't get me wrong, but that has to be perfect every single time. And I think that was your role. I don't know, was that explained to you, John, when you were?
It's in the job description.
that you answered, your staff, that you applied for?
It's in the job description.
Okay.
Well, I've observed that over the course of time, when I started as a city councilor last year and before that, we were having lots of trouble with our minutes and everything. People couldn't hear them, the recordings. I mean, it was just a disaster for quite some time. And so I would say in the past several months, we've gone down to having very few errors, which is fabulous.
They
They're-
look pretty good.
They're coming along and becoming much better. So I think we're moving. I feel good about moving in the right direction. Are you suggesting that you think there's like more training needed or
Well,
more?
I sometimes wonder, John's a strong personality and a strong leader. And I just don't recall the council directing him to hire a recorder.
Well, we did,
Well,
You did hire one.
When you say hire a recorder, I don't think you did. So here's the recorder's in our charter, and the charter doesn't say that the city administrator is a recorder. The council adopted
No,
a
I was
job
here for that and I
description.
voted against that
The
too.
council adopted a job description and included in the city administrator job description the duties of the recorder. But other than that, what that really means is that the council can make anybody the recorder. It doesn't have to be the city administrator.
Right.
I think, again, I've heard one comment that it appeared to be some kind of a conflict of interest if the city administrator and the recorder were the same, but I don't want to get into whether that is or is not a conflict of interest, but
It can be.
what I'm trying to do is actually just get the work done with the people we have. And I came into this where he was already doing that, and it was working. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the only fix I'm trying to do is actually have you,
Modify it almost.
have you guys,
Right. So
have
I
you
get
guys,
that.
yeah.
But-
So that's all I'm
but-
trying to
but
do here.
it wasn't directed at you personally. It was, I think previously, my prior term on the council was when we appointed it to the city manager, which I did not like. And it's supposed to, in my opinion, you want it to just be this removed person that's just beyond reproach. That, I mean, it's like that church lady English teacher person that, and not that Joseph can't be a church lady English teacher, but we just really, I guess what I'm trying to do is display how important it is. All these little things, little teeny tiny things. This should have been done last month. This is embarrassing that we're doing this now. And it was kind of scoffed at when I wanted to slow down and talk about this. I think that there's a reason why some people wanted me to sit in this chair again, and that's to try to help rein things in a little bit. And so let's do that. We have to be in charge of what the administration does. He needs clear, concise direction. I don't know if he's not getting it or if we're not presenting it in a manner that he can, maybe we're not articulating it properly for John or what it is, but just codifying a broken system may not be the best way forward. And if that's what we're doing, I think Joseph's doing a great job. He is, I agree. But what next? Now, because we've created this, now it could be pretty easily argued that we have only a need for a part-time administrator, right? That's
the next item.
See, that's so what you're doing is we're shaping our services and our administration and our government kind of from bottom up or based on what it was when I got it. And, we can't let the tail wag the dog. That's all.
So the clear direction, I didn't have very much direction. I think somebody said, could we get an org chart? So I gave you the org chart the last meeting. When I first got here, I was asked, hey, can we recognize these employees for what they're doing? And I submitted working out of class for all of them. 2 of the employees said they didn't want it. I tried that, and those are comments I got from you all. So I'm trying to do what you guys are telling me to do. And then it was, let's look at the job descriptions, and I'm giving you a job description to look at. And
I think that might have been where some of the disconnect was, is because we've been trying to get the job description so that we can kind of weigh in on the composition of it. And you came back with job descriptions, but I think we were looking more of the historical, which I'm not complaining about this at all, because we have to start the conversation. But
Well, we do have those historical ones were given to us.
right.
They were given to us. And I think to go on what you're saying, Pat, is, at the beginning of the year, last year, I think we all recognize we're at this moment where we've had a lot of turbulence and turnover, and that we have, typically it's my understanding that the administrator is given the charge to make up the composition of the staff to make sure things get done. I mean, that is in the administrator's job description.
Mhm.
And yet, given all the shifts and changes, I think we were saying we would like to see the job description so we can look at it and make sure we're going to be moving in the way that we think is a benefit. And I'll just say one more thing, John,
of course.
which is, you guys, especially some of you have been around for a long time, have really good perspective on that. And then the other person that I think has really good perspective on it is the person who's working the job, and then some of the staff. So anyway, sorry, John.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor, and again, Brett, I feel like I've been, again, clear instruction more or less is like, tell us what's going on, or something. Like you guys said, we want to know what's going on. We want these job descriptions. And so this is a little bit of what's going on, and this and the next item are what I see as what's going on, and how things could work in a city with limited resources, with few people to do a lot of tasks. But as a city administrator, again, some city council in the past stuck city recorder and the city administrator because it had to go.
Well, it was supposed to save us $21,000 a year, and it didn't. It saved us like $6,000.
Okay.
And it did cause some problems.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm not doing this to, I wasn't asked to try to save us money.
No. I don't want you, don't.
Yeah.
But he just hit the nail on the head for the hesitation, because we have made decisions based on where we were at, like from a place of fear, for lack of a better term. And I think that that's where it's one of those measure twice and cut one things, but there's only a million variables, and half of us are stuck on the old.
We heard another concern. And so one of my employee retention.
Mm-hmm.
I know when the port manager was hired, every year I reiterated the success in his ability to retain at 100%. And when you have management shifts, it's not out of the ordinary to lose half your people, more than half the people go away when management shifts. So it's really important in our little town here to keep our employees, keep the ones we have and keep them happy, and not have any disgruntled. And if this particular wage, it sounds like Dina had talked with the council president and mayor. I'm not sure. I guarantee you I would never try to influence an employee to personally, on my own. The council decided, and that's what it is. But we don't want to lose anybody ever. They're impossible to train, police officers especially. The retention on them is just like, the reason, just like everything is about retention of these public employees. And if we were to, rock the boat, so to speak, and lose a couple of good employees over something that was not really super important, or didn't, Joseph's wage may be one of them. I just, let's look broadly across the whole field here, and try to keep everybody happy. We don't want to piss anybody off, and we don't want to lose crew. I mean, I'm telling you, I got a small business. When I lose crew, I know exactly how much it costs. It is incredibly expensive, especially if you've trained them. So you just have to keep tiptoeing ahead, John, I guess, you know. I know it's tough. You're trying to label something that's been built already. And that's nearly, you know, I don't know how how we'd even do it, but the wage part of it, I don't know.
So if
Is
on the
that-
wage part of it, if I'm looking at the math, you got your planner and then you got your recorder. The recorder is a higher paid position. So if you take that lowest band-in rate and you divide that by 160, it's $20.42. So I don't understand how we got to the 22.15 or that extra $1.40.
Are we at liberty to discuss wages of other employees?
We're discussing, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure Shayla's not here, but we always discuss wages in open session, like, because it's public
I just don't
knowledge.
want to, but like in the office, let's just, the people, just people that he,
Yeah, you know you're not supposed to, but.
well, I just, and I don't want to do anything wrong. I just like for perspective.
I think it's public record.
Is it? So there's a couple other workers in there. Are they, Dina's been here for almost a decade.
It's hard though, because they're not the same positions, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. But like, probably, it would be, probably Dina did a lot of training of or help getting Joseph going. I don't know, maybe not, maybe I'm way off, but my question is we're not gonna, what does Dina make? Are we allowed to say that? This thing sounds like it's really loud. Thing really loud. What's that? Can you hear me now? Yeah. It's really loud.
And us.
Well, you know, it's,
Try to keep it real, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, yeah, everybody, I don't think for a quarter has always been the exception, you know?
My problem is I don't quite understand how to read some of these things, but I think what we're hearing about the concern, the primary concern is fairness to employees, other employees. And so it would be helpful before we adopted this to just have some better understanding of that. It sounds like.
Well, it's almost like, are we going to blanket? My concern is if we're going to blanket and update all of the job descriptions we have, and if so, are those, you know, we're going to raise wages for all those employees, or are we just going to do the planning one and just city administrator, or are we going to update, update the Dina role, or update the Keeley role, or update water plant? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
but
to
we've
see what's
just
current.
done through we're not supposed to talk about union negotiations, but we've just been talking about a lot of that stuff through union negotiations for a lot of those jobs. I mean, raises that are going to be coming and all that, right? So it's kind of weird because
It is. It's completely. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like Brett said, losing employees. Are we? Do we
Well,
have
we
to go
just
through?
have to justify it. We need more information. We need to see what other cities' public works makes compared to their recorders.
Yeah.
And not the numbers, just the proportion. Just like maybe recorders make 15% more than head of public works, or there's a
And I
consistency.
think we need to keep to the same size communities.
No, but that's why I was saying if we use the percentages or the proportions to
I
see
think that's what the
how they
union does.
compare.
That's hard though. It's hard to like. There a lot of the towns, it sounds like, are in the same position as us, where they haven't updated these positions forever. So John's valiantly been trying to figure out some stuff for us, and it's been really hard. He's been giving us pretty much the stuff he's able to find.
Well,
We did this
maybe
stuff
we're
before
doing.
for the last couple
I'm just talking.
Maybe we're off script by considering other employees. Like we're talking about this position and the wage for this position. And maybe, I'm as always with the police too, we always want smaller communities to compare to, and it's really hard to find. But I guess the first question would be, is everyone okay with the recorder / planner position? Does that make sense? I'm okay.
Position makes sense.
So that's checked off the list. We know we have some issues with the wage scale, which we might not get to, but what else in here do we not like? That doesn't have anything else to do with wage. That's one little part of this description. Is there any
I have,
duties or supervision type questions?
yeah, I have a few things I wanted to add to this. One is I would like to see in this description, I have two things I wanted to say. I would like to see added to this description under the list of planner. I'd like to see the expectation that the associate or planner one develops proficiency and knowledge of Oregon land use planning, the Port Orford Comprehensive Plan, and Port Orford Zoning Code. It's implied, but I think we really need to have, if somebody's working in planning, they have to be very familiar with our comprehensive plan and our zoning codes, and I just think we should spell it out. I also wanted to mention, I've raised this question before. How do we know that we have enough money to pay for these wages? And so I reached out to talk to David about it because, we were been told we can ask David. He told me something really great about this position in particular, I think, which is that the planning department position is supposed to be self-funded by planning applications and all that kind of stuff. And so he said next year we can really look at how much work is happening in planning, look at the wage and kind of calculate it, figure it out in the budget. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. I thought that was really, it's always
Those
great to
fees
talk to
might
David.
be bumped up to accommodate the higher costs of.
Yeah, like if it turns out that it's hard to pay this wage or whatever, I don't know how it all fits together. It's,
But it's not straight out of general fund. It's more of a pass through because there's revenue from the.
We will be able to, he suggested that if we wanted to, that there would be the opportunity to look at the budget again and make that adjustment and whatever. So that's a little bit different than other positions and could give us, I don't know, just wanted to share that information because I thought that was
I
useful.
just thought of a neat question. Since if we make a new position, do we have to advertise for it?
So did we figure out if this is adding a half a position or is it the same?
Consolidation.
So like status quo prior to.
We have the same number of FTEs, if
Okay.
that's, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by adding a position, but we're not adding any FTEs at the city. We have the 12 or 13.
What
14
about like,
employees.
could you say, John, could you say that it's the same dollars per FTE?
Oh, this is probably more per FTE because the current FTE is getting paid way less, anyway, a few dollars an hour.
I guess I'm trying to look past this last 2
Yeah.
years. You know what I mean? Like back when things were kind of settled. Yep. It seemed.
This is a new position because if you add, we have administrator, finance, Dina Keeley, and now this position.
It just moved things around. We had Beverly, we had a recorder, we had Patty as the planning assistant / clerk, we had our administrator that was just the administrator, and we had a finance director. So all those things are still there. They just got, Beverly went to administrator. Now we're talking about pulling it away.
Beverly was half part-time.
Right. Oh, good point. But this is only 50% planner and 50% recorder.
But it ends up with the full-time position that benefits would come along with, I'd imagine it wouldn't come along with a.
Oh, the part-time position, you're right. So that is.
I'm just like.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
How many, and so that's kind of what I was wondering there and how that looks when, but if it ends up being a part-time finance CFO and a part-time, what do they call you?
Administrator.
They call you a lot of things, don't they?
Just don't call me late to dinner.
So I don't know. I guess that was kind of one of the things that I'm concerned about the money with the money too a little bit. But that's kind of demonstrating what, is it more this way? Is it less? Maybe it was crafted that way prior because it was a cost saving measure that was made before our time.
Different world too. 15 years ago is a long time.
I think one of the things.
It's a major shift in policy that some council sat and worried and maybe there was arguments and maybe there was friendships destroyed because it's maybe it's a major policy shift.
You know, I think one of the things we had talked about early on is the idea of, having a workshop to discuss the positions and what we want to see. And what's happened, because we've been so busy doing other things, we haven't really gotten to that. And John has kind of filled in the gap by putting forth a vision here between the two positions. We're being asked to look at them kind of separately, in part because I believe that we've heard that David Johnson doesn't want to work unless this job is advertised. He wants us to know we're actively looking to replace him, and maybe you feel that way too, John. But so we're filling this in. These job descriptions are specific, but they're a concrete looking at what the vision is. And so the vision. So I think what you're saying, Brett, is we're being asked to approve these specifics, but what maybe you'd like to see is to have a better understanding of what's the vision, right? I mean, is that what you're?
Kind of, yeah, sometimes you do things that seem like they make sense, but they're.
One scary angle of this is, once again, none of us are knocking any person, but the position, there's not a whole lot of experience there yet. And we're looking at, wages of an experienced planner. So if it was, you were starting out at Public Works, you wouldn't get paid as a level 2 operator because you were doing that until you had the certification to show it. So there is a little bit of a rub there.
It's an entry level.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, for instance, let's say we got a guy with Public Works, wastewater treatment plant operator for 5 years. He doesn't make what we're proposing right now. You know what I mean? What's more important to our city? And I'm just saying,
But that's where I get back to the comparison of what other cities do.
Years on the
Maybe
job
all the
training.
reporters in the other city are making $10 an hour more than Public Works.
Yeah, it's right there. I mean, those aren't.
No, I mean, but this, we're not,
I see what you're saying.
Greg has.
Yeah, I see. I like what your angle is. Is it an average they're getting more money?
So again, Ann, I think you gave me too much credit at talking about a vision or whatever.
Well, we want one.
No, I really, again, I came in here, I've had experience at a couple other municipalities for a long, long time. And, and I saw what was happening here. I basically inherited, Joseph as being the recorder and planner, and Keely as being the utility clerk, municipal court clerk, and Dina being the payroll and accounts payable. And so,
you're just trying to find out their jobs and write
and Keely's job descriptions are there. Dina's are there, but Joseph's was like, so that was the one that needed the most, triage, whatever word you want to say, but which one do you give attention to first? The one that is the most messed up. And so that's how it came to you. And then the other one is the city administrator / finance director. And yeah, David Johnson is kind of holding our feet to the fire, saying, I'm only going to take this job part-time if you advertise. And I'm like, I can't. And we're paying him $40,000 a year or something. I'm like, I can't get a finance director in here for $40,000 a year. So I'm trying to figure out how to sweeten the pot, and you can sweeten that pot up to over $100,000 if you combine the jobs. And so I'm trying to get you guys a finance director, and that's why that job is called finance director / city administrator, because, anybody can do city administrator, but finance director, you got to know how to do budget. You got to know all that other stuff. So I feel like that's the most important part of that job. And so, but then again, I also believe, and you saw it in the memo, and I'm sorry, I'm talking about the second agenda item or the other agenda item at this time, but when David got here, the reason we got him, because we were behind on the budget, and we were behind on an audit, and we were behind on a special audit. And he got the budget done, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on the audit and the special audit. And then we'll just be into, I don't want to call it the normal, but we'll be into the normal budget audit cycle on a finance director with overseeing, all the other financial activities of banks and stuff. And he's got us our statements. And again, he's doing that half time. And then the city administrator, you guys gave me a 3 or 4 page list of stuff to do, and we've got a lot of that done. And so then we're going to be in, I don't want to call it maintenance mode, but we'll be more or less hopefully normal, so that a new city administrator could come in and, Gary put the roadmap out there, and I'm trying to drive the car down the road and then hand over the keys to somebody else. So really, but I also think that once things are up and going, you could perhaps have a good balance of halftime each, honestly, because we got 13 FTE and we got a $6 million budget, and that's not a bunch of stuff.
I think that maybe that's a kind of a bit of like what so my thinking is that I think we need a grant writer. We need
I agree.
A stat on,
We put that in the budget and didn't get used.
It didn't get
Just
used.
saying, I put 40,000 for grant writing, we didn't use the cent of it.
So if we have perhaps the financer or the city administrator / grant writer, maybe there's a more valuable way to put together these part-times. And I'm not critiquing John, like you got a list of crap that you had to get done and you've done very well. And, should have probably prefaced with that. But, is our focus to just save money, or we need to get money?
We need to make
money rolling in.
Exactly.
You've got to spend money to make money.
Yep.
And perhaps this is an opportunity to bring on a grant writer into that. My apologies, Don. I know that muddies your water quite a bit.
Well, I think
grant writing is in, grant writing and grant administration is in the job description.
And that's why I don't think an administrator can be part-time, because when you throw that into the mix, you won't have enough time.
But I've observed in the past, since John's been here, we've worked with CCD to basically delegate to them to work on the grant for the community building, and figuring out how we're going to, work with CCD on some other grants. I mean, having a person who actually is a knowledgeable administrator would know, okay, we need to do some grants. Let's figure out how we hire a contract grant writer. And the thing that I've observed from trying to also work with some of these grants, like these watershed things, it's not the front end, it's not the grant writing, it's the person who is there in the background that needs to administrate it. And the finance person, I think, is a key person to move the money around and communicate with, Dina, for the lack of we're not using her position. But anyway, I think that we definitely need to do those things, but I think an administrator who's capable can do it.
That's the key word, is they're capable. And I think they're like John's saying, half this, half that, but I think he's saying more that both positions can be covered with the time, that time, and we'll be able to offer more money if we have a good hire
Capable
with
person.
experience.
Yeah, as opposed to not having enough money and then just kind of hiring around a bunch of people who are not capable.
So I think what you describe is reactionary, okay, we've got a broken list, let's go chase a grant. But there's also another way to do it, and that is to, every Monday when a new grant hits the federal record, the Federal Register, that grant writer knows it. And that grant writer, she or he applies for that grant. It might be for $1 million worth of playground equipment we don't even need, but guess what? We just got $300,000 for playground equipment. And we weren't even looking for that. We got a sewer that's got a problem, but guess what? We got $300,000, so knowing that grants exist is, and what, I referred to as a square going into a round peg with some of the other grant, the previous work that we've done, but knowing what, I don't know. I think on staff grant writer could potentially be very valuable, but
I agree.
But I don't know. Hiring out's a good way to do it too.
And it goes back into the confidence of knowing who to call, or having that Rolodex as the administrator of, I need to call CCD, or I need to call the engineers and see if they can help me with this grant process.
They have a good grant writer.
Away from that to where we always try to contain it and keep it in the city when It's like hiring a plumber. Like it's a specialty
You can
thing.
most of the time, you can write that wage off like.
Oh, in the grant itself?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden it's paying that part-time city administrator is getting the money out of that, we're all of a sudden, we're not even paying our city administrator.
Yep.
It's
Well,
not coming out of the tax
I
base,
think-
it's coming out from
Yeah.
the stuff coming in. We got to get a little bit more.
Proactive, yeah. And I think we're heading that direction. I think what Greg said is right. I mean, we had money in the budget, 60,000 for a grant writer last year, never got spent because the administrator didn't have capacity to deal. And then I think we have a community member who's offered to donate money, and we haven't been able to do it because the administrator hasn't had capacity. But I think we're getting there, and the idea is to try to get there.
We have a community member offering to donate money?
To hire a grant writer.
Okay. What do we want to write grants for?
Parks, Oregon State Lottery funds.
Water.
I've got money that's.
Water and sewer.
I'm just saying, but the Oregon State Parks Lottery Fund is unused, untapped every single year, and we can get a max of $500,000 for our city parks. I know Coquille, all these other places have done it, and they've said how easy it was and how they got their max because not many people apply for it, the Oregon Lottery. You just have to apply for it.
All right.
And do it right.
See, and this is exactly the situation where we have someone that wants to donate money. We have a need, and so we just need to connect those dots, and it almost could be outside of the you just need to find a grant writer, and we have someone that wants to fund it, so.
It was more like what we
Take the
just
ball and
said, the
run.
administration of it. We tried that and we didn't have somebody with the knowledge enough to be on the back end to help us out.
And
So
Mr.
what-
So
Mayor.
why start something if I can't finish
Yeah,
it? That's why I
I'm not
didn't
sure
do
We're
it.
getting off track on these two.
But
Sorry.
what we've been having now,
Unless you want
Into the weeds here.
Well, I'm
That's what I
wondering, I
mean
mean,
by that.
do we really want to, I'm trying to understand where we're at. Are we talking about adding and another position of grant writer or putting, so let me ask you a question. Mr. Mayor, you did clarify, other than Ann Velisis's additions to the recorder planner job, the position sounded okay. You want more background. Gary Burns, you said comparable cities on the pay. Okay, for those two positions or the blended position. So
Like whatever the union does for whatever towns they compare the rest of the employees with.
all right, I'll dig a little deeper.
We've already agreed to the rate that we were going to pay him.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Last month, we agreed to the rate that
We
we were
already
going
got
to
a
pay.
step increase for being.
Ah, very good. Okay, so,
And we also went retroactive, which we don't even know what that is. How much does that cost? So there's a lot.
And then what's the difference from the new pay to this new pay right now?
good,
We're going to have to
okay.
take money away, perhaps?
Mm,
That's terrible.
I don't see taking money away. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, I mean, if we're asking for comparisons.
Oh,
and
okay.
Comparisons come up to where it's obviously
Okay.
just not right, then especially given that we're going to go retro, back to whenever this started.
I think it would be useful
Ooh.
to know what
Yeah.
the person is making, what that position is making now, how that relates to step number one and what happened with the 5%
Okay.
and other comparisons, all that kind of stuff.
So just wanted to briefly respond. So Brett Webb was saying that we already established what the position is paying. Technically, no. So what we did is we invoked a working out of class designation, which is based on the salary that the person is making. It allows a 5% bump from that salary. So it really didn't examine what the position of planner recorder makes. It just recognized that.
Okay.
It recognized that so it's a slight difference there. But I think, again, we can, I guess, really, it sounds like continue this matter. I was, again, trying to, because I heard the concerns that we don't have good information on what this position makes. And, some of you had trepidation that doing a 5% from the old job was, going into uncharted waters. I would at least hope that you could understand that pay out of class is certainly not unreasonable based on what these other jurisdictions are paying for their planners and recorders. So I hope that's okay. And then for the rest of it, I'll try to find out some more better comparables for the planner recorder. That's fine. I would like to say, how do you feel about if that's okay, I'd like to keep us moving and go in. So there's really no decision on that first one other than we'll bring it back after I get some more information for you. On the second one, are you guys okay with, oh, sorry, Tim?
So every year at budget, which I don't believe we have the last 2 years, David prepares the pay scale for all of our employees. It would be helpful to get that so we can take care of some of those concerns. It doesn't mean we're going up, down, or whatever, but if we can look at that in front of us, I think it may help solve some problems.
Very good. And this position was not in there because it didn't exist. But yeah, that pay scale, it did get adopted this year at this budget session. So we can
Okay, so
include
let's
that
take
next.
a look at that, just so we can look at all the salaries side by side.
Very good.
Good, Tim.
And then, so for the next one on the finance director administrator, again, what the goal there is, we need a finance director. And so the goal was to create a pay package that would attract a finance director who understands municipal finance law, which is very particular. And so again, we're paying David part-time contract 40 something thousand. We're paying me like, let's call it 75. So I said, let's just add them together and make this person the finance director / administrator.
And then we throw it for a better job. We throw it for one.
See, at least you'd be able to, I think you'd get some people at least responding to an ad. I've already tried to do a little bit of testing the waters with some of the listservs and didn't get even a nibble. So what I'm trying to do with this one is get the council to attract some people who could be interested in being the finance director. Bannon pays their city administrator like $150,000 a year or something like that. Yeah, I mean it's really, so we're below three digits, and you're gonna you get what you pay for.
Would it be cheap? The 40,000 we're paying David, could we hire a firm to be our finance director as for the city?
Perhaps. I don't
Then
know,
that
but it
takes the money out for the combined, trying to make it a better.
it's perhaps, but the issue there is, I mean, the only thing I can think of is the kind of people who do that work are auditors and our accountants, and those people, they charge a pretty penny. So I would be surprised if we could get somebody to do David's job. Now, the jobs that I have seen outsourced are payroll. There's a lot of payroll companies out there, and I'm not proposing that, but that's more of a fungible skill set or so.
Ford did that.
Yeah. So again, I'm just saying that the finance director and the director people, maybe less so. The only other solution I could think of, Greg, would be what's called an intergovernmental agreement, where we partner up with somebody else. But I think we tried that during the budget season, and we got a lot of stiff arms, and people said, thanks, but no thanks. We got our own stuff to do. But I feel like, some of the other avenues have been explored, and I think this is a worthwhile endeavor, if nothing else, just to get some people in.
Try to attract some.
Just to see. Yeah, hopefully. And I think, again, the kind of person that I think would be attracted to a salary like this for this kind of work is someone who is retired and getting PERS and could double dip, or someone who is a up and comer, like 3 to 5 years, who is like, and they look up ahead and they see all these ingrained people, and they're like, they really want to be the top dog. And I think, and those people might have what it takes, but I think this kind of salary would be decent for someone who's a 3 to 5 year person in a local government finance department, who's also seen a bunch of city council meetings, have seen a bunch of budget presentations, that kind of stuff. Is, again, I just what I'm just kind of the ideas behind it. But
I'm wondering about the checks and balances, like we're concerned when we had a previous.
All the eggs in one basket type thing.
That is, so that's a good question. I don't know that we have that now. Maybe we do, because I mean, who's watching David? You know, I don't know. I don't mean to. I
That's
don't mean
why
to.
we have a budget committee.
Yeah.
That's why we have the 2 checks.
Oh, you have the auditors.
Signatures.
Yeah,
the
no.
like there
Yep.
is some more internal controls on
Yeah.
that side versus the recorder. You know, of kind of like
Yeah.
theoretically you could,
Yeah.
you know, make your own narrative if you wanted to.
And but
and Brett and Tim, you know, there was a few years there where our finance director was doing a lot of administration too. It seemed like, and it was.
I think he was consistent and
the historical knowledge he had too.
He was consistent and he knew what was doable and what wasn't doable. And I think that he informed the administrator a lot.
And that is one good angle of the conglomeration, is to have someone that thinks fiscally first with any problem that they have is
That's how most of us live our daily
yeah,
lives.
no, I know, but it's not always the case.
So
one more quick thing before I forget.
Yeah.
The recorder position and the planner, it only specifies the city council meetings and the planning meetings. Does the recorder go to all the committees and stuff too? I guess I
Parks, does
assume
it not
they
say
did.
Parks in there?
No.
No, it didn't. It
Yeah,
didn't say
it's-
parks or
Parks,
or-
and then we
Now
just,
we have emergency.
we had an emergency management, and I was thinking of actually having Keely do that because she works for, you know, law enforcement and, you know, kind of a combo there, but haven't really assigned anyone. I think I'd sent out an email with you and Jim and Joseph and said it depends on how Joseph feels about it and then the scheduling of that, so.
In the perfect world, the committees would have their own recorder that
Well, that's
could
what-
like report to Joseph or work with
minutes.
him after they got the, yeah.
Well, my job description says that I assign staff to the boards and commissions, so.
Oh, nice.
You assign staff, gotcha.
I had to ask because I didn't notice the other committees.
So again, by adopting the the finance director, administrator job description, you're not then all of a sudden making me that. No. It's just for purposes of advertising the position to see what you get. So I'm not sure if you're worried about creating a precedent or doing something. It's just so we can put it out there to try to recruit.
We need to get ahead of it.
And we need to start recruiting regardless anyways.
Well, on the previous, the Joseph thing, it's ahead of us. But on this, we got the chance to be ahead of it. And we should take that chance. I don't dislike it. I think it's just kind of a policy matter, you know, like just the vision, you know, what we see, what's needed, you know.
And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but we should really make sure that we don't have to advertise for this position if we make a new position. Because I know in some companies, yeah, or like, is there other people in the office that would like to apply or other people? Because we're making a new position, I worry about everything too much, but it's scratching the back of my brain a little bit.
It's valid. I mean, we're not, yeah, I get it.
I think
We kind of ended up backing into it just because of all the circumstances, and it's
Well,
been fabulous. I mean,
Oh, and the
Joseph
one
had
key
to
thing is
fill in
Joseph got
roles.
thrown into this. Like when we made that transition, it was like, well, you know, literally, Mr. Mayor, what would you like me to do? Oh, well, we
totally-
got a shortcoming over here. Why don't you try your hand at that? And a lot of it is, you know,
filled in
as
holes.
far as how he got there, it was an all hands on deck situation and it grew from there. I'm responsible for everything with that.
If we adhere to the pro tem piece,
Yep.
Joseph,
Yep.
then the advertisement is easy.
Oh, right.
But if it's not pro tem, it needs to not say pro tem. If it is pro tem, it needs to say pro tem. It
Well,
needs to be
so
every single time it's referred
if-
to, it needs to be, it can't be kind of both.
If I could, this job description would also then, the pro tem was until we got this thing sussed out. And so what I'm trying to do is address, and this would therefore make it not pro tem, right? And then we could then strike out that the city administrator is the city recorder, because anyway, unless you wanted, the city administrator could be the backup recorder in case the recorder is gone and something needs to be signed or who knows what, but you know, it doesn't hurt to have redundancy. Anyway, so I'm getting the sense, I mean, the board is not ready to adopt the recorder planner job description with pay scale. And if you don't want to adopt the job description, I mean, it doesn't make sense to adopt a job description without a pay scale. So if you just want me to bring it back, I will. What about the city administrator, finance director job description and pay scale? David has said that looks, I think he gave it a loose thumbs up. He said it looks like we can afford it. But I would like to get started on advertising. Wintertime is a good time to advertise. A lot of places make changes in the new year. So yeah, especially after new election cycles, you get, especially with this kind of a job, you get a new bunch of city council members and they want a new person and stuff like that. So
Quit.
well, that happens too. Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
that could happen.
Real quick,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, no, you're fine, finish.
Just quickly, it would not be unethical or immoral or wrong to advertise for two positions. One, city manager, or three positions, a city manager, a CFO, and of course, I mean,
Yeah, but those are the city manager and CFO are $100,000 positions and we don't have that.
but, well,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that you can apply it, just putting it out there, an announcement, right? It's signing no contract with anyone. And all of a sudden you start to field applications and you can see, wow, it is really actually impossible to do it this way. John's right. It's impossible to do it this way. Or, well, maybe it is doable this way or something based on what you get back.
Well, I've already tried some of that and I got nothing. So I'm trying this
Yeah. What did you advertise for?
with the listservs, like the groups of other city managers and stuff like that. So, if the council wants me to, I'm not sure even what you're asking.
No, I didn't ask anything, John. I was just,
Okay.
an idea would be that we don't, you don't have to limit it to just one of these potential jobs. It could be, right now, there's three potential jobs, right? One of them's a hybrid this, one of them's a hybrid that, and one of them is status quo or something like that.
I'm not following you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Greg's-
Yeah. Status quo or hybrid one or hybrid two. I mean, you could advertise for anything. It doesn't mean you're hiring anything. It's just.
Oh, were you raising your hand too, Greg?
I was, we'll get Tim, it's
Oh.
easier for him. Go ahead and get Tim to.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Tim.
So the first question we need to answer as a council, do we want a half-time city administrator or do we want a full-time city administrator? And pretty much the same question goes with the finance director, because it wasn't too many years ago we paid and we had a finance director and a city administrator. And no, we couldn't pay them what is on this new pay scale. But we did pay them a decent salary. So that's the first question.
So we've got a pretty tight budget. David found $40,000 to pay him half-time in our budget this year to be our part-time finance director. If you take, and then I combine that with what you're paying me for city administrator, if you take that and divide it in half, you're paying basically $60,000 a year for a city administrator and $60,000 a year for a finance director. And I will tell you, you will get 0 applicants for those jobs, 0 qualified, capable applicants for those jobs.
So it wasn't too long ago we were paying well above that. So I do understand our budget constraints currently, and I think it has to do with, the amount of money we've been spending. But we actually did meet with David and ask what we paid, what the salary was with the city administrator that left a few years ago, and what what the finance director's salary was when he left. It was much higher. Both of them were much higher than 60,000.
I think it was 90-ish, if I recall correctly.
Both of them. Yeah. Well, but,
Yeah.
our revenue stream was vastly different at that time too,
Why?
I agree. I agree.
because of before we went to 2 lanes, the traffic revenue was much, or the ticket revenue because of the speeding was much higher.
But was
And
that
there's
the
also
cost
maybe
higher?
some positions that we have now that we're paying for that, you know, like onesie twosies that are taken away from our resources too. Right.
That's it. We added a 5th guy in public works. We may have added an additional police officer, but I'm not certain about that. I don't believe
No,
we
but
did.
there's
There.
the other 60 or 70,000 there, and it was a halftime, not full time.
Yeah, and the problem we're having is we need to advertise this position now, not next budget cycle, not after taking out a public works person and a cop and, you know, not this other stuff. So we need to do this now, and I'm trying to get us to do something that we can do now.
Some people don't put a wage when they put a job description out there.
The OE.
You know, you don't put a wage, you put the job description, and people call to ask what the wage is, and you start the conversation. But go ahead, Ann.
Why don't you call for a consensus, Pat, and poll the council and see what they want? Do they want a half-time person or a full-time person? That's going to answer a lot.
That's a good, I will just go, I don't need a consensus, and I will get to you, Ann, and I will get to you, Greg, but just to finish up with Tim, half-time, full-time, Greg, where do you land on? I know it's kind of a starting point.
I think it has to be a combined position due to the competitive wages. We're not going to be able to, just like John said, we're not going to be able to split a 60 and a 60 and make one person work. So I think it has to be a halftime and a halftime. And for us at our city level.
Is that the question? Or the question is, what do you want?
Personally, I feel that.
I'll get to you.
Is that, I mean, just Greg, just to clarify, was that the question, what do you want, or what do you think we can afford? I think those are vastly different questions.
Yeah, that is.
What I want, sure, I want 2 full-time positions, but what we can afford is, yeah.
But it would take the money out of it, like Brett said, obviously you'd want
Full-time, yeah.
positions, but if you look at the whole case.
Well, of course you would want 2 full-time positions, you know what I mean? Like that's really not even a question for me to even.
And then Gary?
Yeah, I think full-time, and I think it might be possible if we had active grant writing.
Halftime, obviously a halftime finance director works, we have David.
I mean, if the finance director was, had a portion
David's
of the
not gonna do
grants
it.
and the
Well, I know,
administrator
I'm
had a
saying that-
portion, one had the front end, one had the back end, or.
Yeah, and now it's like finance director / grant writer, since they're, you know, hand in hand, but.
But full-time, to me, there's enough going on in City Hall and will be that, it just seems like if there was any way to make full-time, that would be the best for the town.
Maybe if you can get someone in here to figure that out for you at before the next budget cycle. That'd be tough. Budget cycle's coming up in March, so you'd have 90 days to hire someone and say, find us 2 full-time people in this budget.
Yeah, but we're just spitballing here anyways, and that's where I land on, like, obviously.
Well, I don't have a lot of time to spitball. I want to put out this advertisement or not, and then, you know, what do you guys?
Can we just get through the circle at least and
Well,
give the counselors a
I don't
couple
know.
minutes to
Can
weigh
you?
in on it?
Okay. That's a great question.
So how would you like me to move forward with this, John? We don't really haven't had an opportunity to talk on it.
Hold on a minute. Why don't we take a break? Let's not get shitty.
No, I'm just asking.
I'm just saying, we're all working in the same direction. If we need to take a break, let's take a break.
I make a motion that we have to extend this meeting by, because it's 7:30. And so I make a motion that we take a break and extend the meeting.
I second it.
Okay, take a break and extend the meeting. Greg?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Brett?
Webb, yes.
You said yes to extending a meeting. That's the first. I was waiting to see if you were going to do it. I did it this time for the first time too, so I understand. volunteerism is amazing.
I don't understand what digress is there. Did I miss
Frustration.
something?
Huh?
Did I miss something with the?
Oh, no. Oh, you mean that?
Just like with what just
Yeah,
happened?
yeah.
I thought we were just going around in a circle. And
I think it was misunderstood.
Okay.
just when somebody.
I am so looking forward to Monday to go to my orthopedic surgeon. God,
To what?
orthopedic surgeon Monday. Can't wait. Hopefully he's gonna. I got new X-rays and I know there's a bone chip or something in my ankle really badly. Like where the surgery, you know what I mean? Like it's happened. I just want to get it over with and figure out what's up.
So how did the disc golf thing go?
We had 91 people show up.
It's amazing, and it was a gorgeous day, so it was like perfect for it.
Pat, sorry to butt you on this break.
Yeah, what's going on, Jen?
Oh, I was gonna say,
Great.
and somebody just brought it up, did we get 50,000 for a grant writer?
Oh, cool.
Why can't the finance person and the grant
Yeah.
writer be the same person?
That is
That's why I just
Because this
landed on
job
two
is
because they're so
so
congruent.
Huge.
Well, and I didn't. We haven't got there yet, but
mean,
I
the
feel
job
like we're
description-
looking to maintain when like you have full time, then we have a chance to grow and
Right,
do
exactly,
some
especially
of
having
the
grant writer, because we're, you know, in planning, we're looking at traffic calming, buying, driver feedback signs, they're expensive, there are grants available, you know.
Right. No, and seeing that's how it should work is like we have to have the capacity for grant writing, and then we get like you guys give us the recommendation of we want to do this project, we okay it, and then
If
execute.
you look at the job description for the city administrator, it's like 50 pages long.
And well,
It's a ridiculously complicated job.
And it's ridiculously complicated to try to get to a baseline when you're based it off, 10 years ago, what was happening and what the current needs are. And you have someone that's in the driver's seat, but then you have all these other people with the history and we get beholden to, it's how it used to be, but it doesn't mean it's the best way for it to
I know,
go.
it's weird, because last year when Jessica was writing the grant, the FEMA grant, I do grant writing for a living, but now I'm like booked out. But I offered to, even for free.
And no.
Nothing. And I offered to collect data. I was like, let me meet with John Isidore. I'll even bring my laptop into the office and I will collate the data that you need for the grant. I can read it over, do this for a living.
And that's the thing is the lingo. I don't know. I've had enough proximity to know that it's like your Rolodex or knowing who to call or having the people to glean off of. Well, and we got to remember that we're like everyone's sitting up here wanting a popularity contest pretty much. And so a lot of these things that are so basic to you and it's like a given, we are beholden to what the information that we get, and I think a lot of times it makes it harder than it is.
I just heard you say it, come to the conclusion that the grant writer and the finance person.
It's because we both know that it's the tail end of it and it's the financial reporting that gets serious. Not that the writing of the grant is easy, it just gets a lot more serious.
They're really two separate skills, the finance skill and the administrator skill.
Absolutely. And the finance, other than the narrative and the environmental, those
know,
financial
that is
questions.
excellent. I love it.
Finance director to plug in for the grant writer.
Oh.
And but even at that,
good for you.
Like having a financial person that would be bent that way a little bit to where we could get support from someone that really does it and grow that way. Because we have to be a little more creative.
This is really cool. I'm so glad. Yeah, it was like so many people.
Whole different world, and it'd be great if you could say this is politics. Like
it was hard
yeah.
to win. There was
I don't want to be that guy anymore. When I have a company that's like so black and white.
But if there's $60,000.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that's why we need, because I don't know where we landed on it this year. I think it was 40, but if we can get a plan before the next year, it's not like we have to spend that money. So we just need good plans. And that's what
What John was suggesting for this combination, finance administrator, whatever you find for administrator, and then you have like a semi-competitive salary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard. well, because our wages don't compare, but we live in Port Orford. Like we pay, like you gotta pay in some way for living in this.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I'll let you get back to your break.
No, but I'm glad that we land on the same
It made
spot.
sense to me. Yeah, because I was thinking it when you said it. I was like,
Be interesting.
yeah.
So it's just, when it's numbers, it's like, oh, we need a little more information. Oh, we need a little more information. Oh, we're like,
And then
we could look
then
3
you're
years
like,
ahead.
Next month, the next month, the next month, but you guys have to advertise the per town, or the.
Period.
Yeah, the time is expiring. Hey, Gary. Intense meeting.
Yeah.
I went upstairs and raised all the way. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, just make me up. Like, why are you doing that? I'm trying to get you out. I tried to. I almost did. Everyone's talking about it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I went to disc golf first. I went actually.
Doing great from a planning perspective as well. Yeah, it's kind of challenging, like talking about his position while he's sitting right here because you're super valued, but, then there's the realities of like the budget and growth. But we want to keep you for sure.
Next year, I'm gonna do
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of it. Yeah, we just did a review of the comprehensive code in planning. Yeah. But it was kind of a broad overview, how they align to statewide planning. They're broad, they can be vague, yeah, and they can be interpreted. And the comprehensive code really has or the comprehensive plan has no teeth,
They asked me a question. I give them an answer. They want the answer. They should have me. But it's they asked a question.
We could, I got that feedback from somebody too, that it was really vague and kind of useless to us. The way that it was written, yeah. Yeah, we should. Yeah. Actually, I brought that up to Crystal at the last planning meeting, reevaluating, sort of how the code, our code relates to the code, so maybe we could add, yeah.
We got a bearded Valor. I stole like the neighbors.
Right.
Where's I didn't. I was like pushing the. I was like, oh,
it's great. It would be great if you followed it.
Everyone's just looking at me like, I went to the dive after I had dinner, there was a bar. David. He's like, hey, counselor.
So outdated. Yeah.
It was crazy. I'm like, I've never been to Costco before, ever. I felt tutu last night. This guy, yeah, I was like, man, guys, it's like a big thing, yes, it is Portland.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that's like, it's on the back burner because it's not a pressing.
Oh, shnikes.
That's where we're at.
All of our mics are on. They turn these mics up, whoever just. like loud. We can hear everyone breathing. You can. Which one did you hit, Joseph? The system control?
Which one? What are you trying to do?
Just turn it down a tiny bit. But we no longer have the people in the audience that need the hearing up so loud.
The person that was having a hard time hearing loud.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It was almost like echoey.
Okay.
It was like right on the edge of being like.
There's more candy over there in the corner.
I know. That's why I didn't give out candy, because I'm on no sugar. I didn't want candy in my house.
Right, yeah.
It was cheaper too. 20 pounds of potatoes is like $8.
Potato?
20 pounds of potatoes,
Oh,
20 toothbrushes, and 35 flossers.
Oh, that's great.
That's what you gave out, very good.
I gave out tricks. I didn't give out treats. It was the best. Gary saw me last night at the dive. It was a sight to be seen.
What did you go?
Oh, you're old. I can't explain it, honestly. It's one of those unexplainables. You just have to.
Your hair do
visualize.
that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's my profile picture right now. Yeah, and that's
Oh my gosh, that is scary.
I know. Yeah, I gave out
Cute, though.
potatoes, and my little 12-year-old neighbor made me do a photo shoot because she did all my makeup and hair and
How
stuff.
did she do your hair? What was it?
She had pigtails. She did braids. She did.
Oh, jeez.
And then her little 6-year-old sister was giving me stuff to put in my hair and a crown, and I was just like, let's do it.
Good thing you don't like live in a state where like drag is illegal.
Oh, I didn't care. It was so much fun. And at first she's like, why are you doing this? I'm like, it's the one day.
So there was an option for it, but
I did this tomorrow, then we weren't gonna laugh.
senior year.
But last night it was, everyone and their mother was fun. That was the time that was like, went over well.
Was there a hanging party at that?
There was a whole bunch of stuff. I went to go eat, and I ended up with salted down, which I think that was the first time this year I ever felt hungry. What sort of crap? Poison.
Yeah, but it's also, it's carb, it's carbs.
Tequila.
Oh, okay.
Tequila is like water. But yeah, no, it was definitely a fun week. As soon as.
Not me. Work. I've been like working all.
Good move, Phil. Perfect. Perfect job. Perfect. Yeah, good job. Couldn't have scripted that better.
Water. I just brought coffee tonight.
Said like it.
Okay, then, are we recording again?
Yeah, I don't think we stopped recording.
Okay. All right, so we'll reconvene at 7:45. Pro Tem Administrator Hunnell is under the weather, so he has stepped out for the rest of the meeting. And we were on me as far as, the full-time or half-time administrator / recorder. And I land on, take the money out of it, maybe we can maintain that way, but we want to excel. Like, we want to get ahead of the game, and I don't it's kind of, are we going to maintain or not? And yes, the budgetary is the ultimate question, but it's really hard when you got open-ended conversations like this, and I know as being a manager myself, you come with presentations or ideas, and it's the nature of it to kind of get eaten up, because it is a conversation. But like Tim said, we used to pay 2 people. And then before we went on break, and then I talked with Jen afterwards of maybe a finance director / grant writer, or putting some of that on a finance person would be a different way to go. But how in the hell do we get to a point where we're like we're moving forward is what we've just been spinning our wheels on for months.
You got to spend money to make money.
And part of me is like, well, maybe we should just use the job descriptions we have and adjust from there. But okay, what do you got, Brett?
Well, I mean, ideally, we would have 2 full-time positions, and perhaps one of them is, or both, maybe, but maybe the grant writing goes into one of these things. I really think that having a grant writer looking for grants every day, they get up and they're combing through their computer looking for a grant that we can fall into. That's how you do it. And no. And it might just be, 15 minutes here and there out of the finance director, like these numbers are driving me crazy. Let me dig through and look for here, it's, something to get out there and get that money. And then more times than not, you're right, like that $60,000 or that was allocated for grant writing. Much of that could have been used to pay Jessica for the work that she did writing that grant. All that time when she was away, whatever it was, and we were just so. And like Pat at the port, when he's doing time spent on the crane project, he's marking down that this is going for the crane, and then when that grant does come, then some of that money can go back into his wages. Yeah, and it comes.
It's a line item.
Exactly.
On the grant.
But
Right,
it's the
so-
person trying to find and write the grant that we need. And you can write that into the grant, but if we don't get the money, then we still got to pay that person.
Well, so then there's these little grants all around. We're operating at the port. We're operating on a small grant that we got from Myers Trust. Is that what it is right now, Pat? It's like $100,000 we got, and then one year they gave us another 20 or 40 or something.
50 and 50, but it was the support.
That's what's getting it done. Is that we were able to identify and chase that grant. Now all of a sudden, that grant writer is paid for. He's no longer this burden that we have to worry about. So I think that if you can't, you've got to identify what it is that you're after and then go after it. And I think that'd be like settling for a bad partner. And I know all about it. You don't want to settle for a bad partner. You want to go for the great one. You know what I mean? So, and then maybe keep the okay one, I don't know, but don't shoot for mediocrity. You know what I mean? Shoot for the stars.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. So I came into this conversation and I've been thinking all along, I would way rather have a full-time city administrator and a part-time finance director and have the finance director do the back end, do the grant stuff, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be ideal. However, I don't understand the background that we've described of like why we used to be able to pay 2 people $90,000 and we can't anymore. I'd like to understand that better. But given the current situation, and having talked to, I did ask David Johnson about what he thought about this proposal too financially. I feel personally comfortable floating this. I feel comfortable putting this out for the same reason Greg described. I think we would be better off hiring somebody who's super competent, who has experience, who could then say, yeah, let's hire the grant writer, or let's figure out how we can pull the resources together and do it, as opposed to finding ourselves with somebody that we're paying that doesn't have the experience and knowledge to do it, which was the situation we had been in before. We had somebody who did not have the capacity, couldn't figure it out, and that was.
Be careful where you go with.
Well, I'm okay. So I'm just saying that's it. So I think that the idea of shooting for the stars means trying to find somebody who's super competent, and that means paying more. So personally, I would rather have us have a full-time administrator, or I'd rather even have this job look like administrator, finance director, part-time. So it's, but I am willing to move forward with the idea of let's float this and see what happens so we can see what it looks like and learn from it. And then can I just say one other
please,
thing?
yeah, and I'll go back to what.
I want to talk about a little bit about this whole grant thing too. I want to just say, I want to underscore too that I have observed in the past 3 or 4 months that Administrator Huddle has been able to pick up the balls in a number of these grants that I have been working on in relation to water. You know, we had promised the community to work on the community building grant, and we were unable to do it. I worked with him. We picked up the ball. We got CCD to work on it. They're working on it. That's so cool. Similarly, we figured out an opportunity to get CCD to help us with another group to help us get more watershed grants. They're working on it. You know, we're not going to, I was hoping we will talk about it a little bit later, but some of us have been, you know, we found out we did not get the BRIC grant, but we have the opportunity to now go back and reapply. He's working on it. He's figuring it out. So I guess I'm just saying that to me, it sort of opened my eyes of like, yeah, if somebody is on top of it, they can make it happen. And so that to me, anyway, that's all of saying that ideally, yeah, I would love to have a full-time administrator that has the skills to communicate well with the community and staff. And but given where we're at now, I feel like it could be beneficial to us to float this and just learn. And then as we go, maybe figure out this other stuff, like why could we afford two $90,000 positions 5 years ago and we can't anymore?
So you're wanting to float the administrator finance?
I personally feel comfortable with that, to learn and to put it out and, you know, make sure David knows we're serious about it. If everybody else wants to wait another month and like nail it down further, but I think there is value to not hiring it, but just to seeing what happens.
And
But
in
anyway,
the interview, we can be asking the people what they feel.
And that's why I suggested put all three of them out there.
My one question before we went on break real quick, I forgot.
Harry, we have to hear from too.
No, that was my last thing. If we float or we accept this, the way it's stated right there, we're accepting an ordinance, right, for this position, 2020. So does John immediately take salary? Because it says right, the last word says right before the last thing says the corresponding salary range for this position is adopted on this day. So does John immediately get a raise if we accept this position? Does that make
He's not going to be.
I don't think so.
Well, he's a pro tem, so it shouldn't.
I'm just asking. You see what I'm saying, though? You know, that's a big thing.
Adoption of an ordinance is serious.
Yeah, that's what. Well, just because literally, if you read literally that last sentence, it says we're going to adopt this pay scale if we accept an ordinance. So does Mr. Hartle immediately get, you know, a $40,000 jump in pay tonight if we float the ordinance, like you said? You know,
I don't.
Does that make sense? Like.
It does. I don't think that was what he was proposing, because
I'm not saying that one bit. I'm trying to say from our standpoint.
But like the black and white.
The black and white, like Brett said, from pro tem to, you know, with him.
Yeah.
Hey,
To me,
Tim, have you ever, do you
I think
remember
we could
ever
look
doing a
back.
job description by ordinance?
We could look back at ordinances and see if that is the case, but I don't recall doing it.
Yeah, and I'm just, I don't remember doing it.
you see what I'm saying? I'm just asking. That was
Yeah,
it.
no,
Just
no.
because it says corresponding wage scale, and I want to make sure that that's.
All right, and I don't think that is.
I
but-
kind of like where we're landing on this though, because if we get the right person, they'll be able to tell us where our needs are
We
at,
don't-
or if
we
we
don't need
need a
to
little.
approve
thing.
I agree with what Ann said by we do need to get this out there and everything else. I would have, to me personally, I would agree to it if it didn't say that one word right there. That we're really going to accept it. If we accept it, the pay scale is accepted.
If we accept it, we've accepted a new form of administration.
Well,
and
we
by
may.
ordinance. But we can advertise for whatever we want without an ordinance.
Without the ordinance.
Without the ordinance, we can direct staff to advertise this document and not do an ordinance, just.
Yeah.
just put it
Adopt the
out.
And
So
Dave,
can we direct?
Dave
Don't
didn't
put the
ask for an
link,
ordinance.
don't put
Dave asked
anything,
for.
just start advertising and.
I agree with
Yeah.
with the
That
mayor's.
sounds like a good idea. And I just want to say too that I did go through all the job descriptions, and I was sort of thinking that, you know, it was a little bit more rocket science, but actually, you know, John took the existing job descriptions and that's what he's working with.
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
basically
He's
the
got a
existing
difficult job.
descriptions.
He's got a difficult job.
Well, in those key words, you hear half and half, so you assume that it's going to be, oh, it's 12 o'clock, I'm going to put
Yeah,
my
right.
recorder hat
Right.
on. But no, it's like, because I've always kind of felt like a good administrator, you're gonna know the financials pretty damn good anyways. Not the daily workings of it, but you should have a.
Isn't Joseph trained in that? Joseph, did you go to school and learn to do some accounting? Is that what you were originally hired as a, assistant to the accountant or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't even know.
I mean, if you don't mind.
Personnel about?
Well, just my question,
If he wants to-
well, the question is
Right.
originally hired. We've already approved what he's got coming.
was a math student. He studied math.
My degree was in applied and computational mathematics, but I did take some courses in accounting and finance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, he's done, he's getting what he get. We already give it to him.
Yeah, we already established his
Right.
other pay scale.
Right.
We just didn't do the one for this evening.
Right.
What,
Go ahead.
one thing I would like to add to this job description, which I don't think is adequately stated here, is something along the idea of, supervising staff is in here, or supervision is in here early on. But I think it would be good to add the hire, select, supervise, train, and evaluate city personnel according to city employee manual. That was in one of the old job descriptions, and I didn't really see it exactly in here. So it seemed like that's an important thing to have in
Good
here.
point to put in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a,
It's gotta get, yeah, once we figure out what employee manual we're.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
You know, we sent Dave Johnson to school and taught him to do what he's doing.
Yep.
The city paid for it.
I remember that.
Well, this is another question I had in this thing. There is this description in here where there's the benefit of the continuing education.
Mhm.
And so that seems like quite an expensive thing potentially. And I wondered if we want to have that not like definitely in there, but more like have that as an option so that if we, let's say we did get one of, yeah, like if we got somebody who was on the younger end or the earlier end of their career, we could perhaps even offer them like this. Whereas if you have somebody who's a retired person, or like who's at the end, they're not going to want it. So that was one thing I thought about changing in here,
I
the
think
educational benefits thing.
But I think that kind of probably, doesn't that say it on all job descriptions almost? That like for the sewer plant guy, you want him to continue his education. And I'm sure our law enforcement guys, they're going to want to go and learn how to, maybe de-escalation training or, that type of thing. I know in certain fields of work, you get a little raise for that little stuff, you know what I mean?
But
So
this
you're
says-
always,
This says continuing education, including a master's degree in public administration with
That sounds
paying
a
for
little-
tuition, books, supplies.
hold everything.
All this stuff. So it's like quite a lot of educational benefits.
I missed this part.
So, I mean, it's cool, but that was in there before, by the way, too. But it does seem like it could potentially be quite expensive.
So,
It might have been written up for the instance Brett was talking about earlier.
so this is what we did. We had a lot of trouble finding a finance director, and that
So that's what it was.
and Dave was a lot like Joseph, and he showed there. Like, I wasn't there, I wasn't at the table, but it seems to have worked out. Here he is saving us. Some 20 years later, he's,
Super knowledgeable and dedicated and
he's
amazing.
saving us, and he knows things from the bottom up. And, I mean,
Do you guys think the first sentence under supervision exercise, it says supervision is the responsibility of this position and have general supervision over all city employees and all appointed city officers? Does he have supervision over all appointed city officers?
Well, who are the officers? Is that?
That's what are they talking about officials or?
official is in the root
And
word.
all appointed city officers except for the
Is that
finance
like
director.
the chair of the planning commission? Is that an appointed official?
That is a city
Or like
official.
Us?
That's it. Wait, I don't know. See, this is really,
All appointed city officers, does he mean police officers, Andrew?
In the city charter, I just read it, it said the city officers were the municipal judge and the recorder.
oh, that's right.
Okay,
That's
okay,
right.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
two.
yeah, yeah.
Right, and that's why the recorder part of it has always been so important to me. And it's never been about our fabulous guy. It's never been about this dude. It's
Okay, and Joseph, you're writing down these changes or because what have we had so far? We had the question on the schooling and the books, and you had one other.
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, why don't we just do it in order, okay? So on page 35, there is just a grammar question there. You raised it, Pat, like supervision is the responsibility of this position and have general super. That just needs to be fixed. Supervision exercise, the first sentence. And I guess we have clarity on the officers.
It should say has instead of have.
Yeah, or a new sentence like the FDCA exercises supervision over all city employees or something like that. And then I was going to suggest an addition, which would be to, I took this language from a previous job description, which was hire, select, supervise, train, and evaluate city personnel according to the city employee manual. That just seems like that's a clear thing. And then the question mark about, do we really want to include the educational benefits just flat out, or do we want to kind of add that later if need be? I would say let's pull it and then
Say again.
pull this one of the educational benefits up to the master's degree and just save it in our back pocket, I guess is what I'd suggest.
Could we say something like there's potential for?
Yeah.
And then it would be.
Oh, that would be
I would just
perfect.
pull- I would just pull
That'd
it
be perfect.
entirely.
Yeah, I would.
Pull it entirely, and if you can entice that later on, you know what I mean?
Well, it may entice a real good applicant to be like, there's my ticket to my master's, you know.
Master's degree.
Well, if they've already got a bachelor's, it's.
I'm just saying, to me, we're quibbling about $5, $4 an hour for this employee, you know, and everything else, and now we're about ready to give a master's degree and pay tuition for somebody
No,
else.
because you hire them at 40,000, and then as they excel and gain the skills necessary, then then you're bumping them up. That's just kind of what I think that actually was written for a particular purpose. And maybe you're right. Maybe you take it out. I don't know. But on the other hand, maybe that is attractive at the same time. I don't.
Very attractive.
Yeah.
Free tuition. That's very attractive.
Well, I mean,
That's a lot of
it doesn't say we'll send you to Harvard. It says
It doesn't matter.
it could be University of Phoenix where it comes in a mailbox.
Very vague, though. Yeah.
We'll train you up.
No, it
You can
won't
get a
say
job at a
Harvard.
bigger city in 5
Yeah.
years.
You have to
Yeah,
get a B.
I'm not. Yeah.
What if you don't get a B? Then we're
Yeah.
Okay, and can you read this statement about the handbook again to me, Ann?
well, this was it's just kind of putting in here clearly somewhere that there is supervision, hire, select, supervise, train, and evaluate city personnel according to the city employee manual.
And our manual has all those hiring, like all those facets that you hit?
I do not know that. What I read is
That's what I was
found
asking.
this other thing in the existing city administrative.
Oh, okay. So, and we do have a handbook. Like, I mean, we have multiple handbooks. It's just landing on I think
Well,
where it's the
I guess
2016 is the official.
What
one.
I'm saying here is like, it says supervision exercised and it says supervision exercised over all employees, but then it doesn't really say anything about what that is. And so this would say that the expectation is supervision, but also training, evaluation, kind of like there's a little, it sort of gets to the heart of a little bit more of like, well, what does the supervisory role look like? That you have to be able to train your staff so that they know what is expected and that you have to provide evaluation and, that kind of thing. Just spelling it out somewhere because I don't see that. I didn't see it anywhere else, I guess is what I'm saying. So it seems like a good thing, I thought. And then finally, I was wondering what capable of obtaining a bond means under qualifications.
It means you don't got like felonies for ripping a bunch of stuff off.
Okay.
And
And
you got to be bondable. You know what I mean?
I know. What does that mean? I don't.
If I went to, so if I was a bad guy and I wanted to be in charge of $6 million, right?
Yep.
Then I have to go get a bond.
Bonded. Yep.
And then I'm bonded. I don't know that was done with the last one.
Yeah.
Do we actually do it? It says capable of, so we don't ask for it, but we ask for
Oh,
somebody to be
that's
capable
interesting.
of.
That's interesting.
Capable of meaning, are you? Yeah. It's
Are
just,
you eligible?
are you eligible?
What
Wow.
does that mean? Do we
Like,
have
yeah,
to-
I could go get a driver's license anytime.
Gotta pay my fines off.
All right, guys. So we're on
So-
35?
Can I just real quickly, so supervision received, this paints us into a corner. And we have, prior to Jim Auburn, I think, Tim, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the supervisor, this creates a situation where the supervisor can only be the mayor. And that you may not want that. You may find that your mayor is not necessarily the greatest supervisor and you would like Perry to be the supervisor of the city administrator. This allows, just, you're stuck with what you're stuck with. You have 7 people capable of a task and you may be permanently assigning the weakest of the 7. And I don't mean in this case, I mean moving forward.
You could say, or his designee.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, if we could loosen that up a little bit, I think it would be.
Isn't the mayor the head administrator? And I'm not saying that from, I'm the mayor, I want to be the boss. I just mean that's the whole point of being the mayor.
Well, here on this paper it is.
Supervised by the mayor, who has hire and fire authority with the.
No, I don't think it's in the charter.
I think that what you're trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is sometimes somebody who is a good administrator is not necessarily a good supervisor because of people skills or whatever.
And there may be a strong candidate sitting.
Right, and that perhaps somebody else is more capable of that. And that, that makes sense.
But if it's in the, I don't think it is, Ann. I looked,
Oh, okay.
but I could be wrong, of course.
Right at the top.
Really?
No, like
Well, look right at the
like
top.
on page 1.
Maybe I missed it. First sentence of page 1.
Skip right by it, huh?
Clearly, we're not going to solve this
Yep.
tonight, but maybe if we can just answer this one question, it'll give us something to think about. I don't know.
Well, but that's the thing is,
Do we want to
say
direct?
we need to, it would be really, really great if we could get to a point where we could get advertising. Doesn't mean we can't adjust it or
Do we
change.
need to name, so we need to advertise, but we can't advertise the wrong thing.
Right.
Do you
So
think
there's
this is
a
the wrong
couple of
thing right now?
Well,
With, I'm sorry, real quick, with the corrections and suggested.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be the right thing to just to
so
do it?
far, I
Well,
mean.
I'm just saying, so with corrections, we can get this.
I think we can get it
along.
done, yeah. I think.
That's what I'm saying. So with corrections stated by
Yeah,
Wysis.
and Perry, you have some concerns too.
No, I really don't have any.
You see what I'm saying? We can apply for this and get it, get it out there.
Really, you think people will respond if there's no salary?
Still 100, I mean, but
I
think we do this salary thing that we talked about, where we put the 100,000, we dangle the carrot out there. Because like John said, we've been trying to get people for, 60 to 70 and we've gotten these crickets.
So what you can do is you don't have to, you
Hell of
can
a lot
save.
more people call to find out what the pay is and get, then you start the conversation.
Well,
I just want to say one thing.
Commensurate experience. I mean, sorry.
That's okay. Just, I hearken back to Gary Millman. His parting comment was, just remember you get what you pay for.
Yep.
For the future.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
I
I think
think that
the
is
combined job is what
so
we're
important.
is gonna be the mega for our community.
I think we could do better with a halftime finance director. And I think that it seems like David is able to do everything he needs to do at halftime.
Right.
Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Because he knows the ins and
so I
outs of
think
this
we-
budget.
Yeah. Pardon?
Because he knows the ins and outs of this budget. Otherwise, you see what I'm saying?
Yes, but if somebody is
Competent.
yeah, if somebody's competent and does this kind of thing all the time anyway, they're going to be able to step in and do the same sort of
I
thing.
just find it hard to believe
A
we
lot of
can't
it-
pay an
Numbers, the
accountant.
rules are the
So
rules.
now we're talking about half a position that's unfunded or potentially not affordable.
It's just, it baffles me that an accounting firm is gonna be more than the $40,000. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Lots more.
really?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Have we?
Really? Have we really actually, and I'm trying to be, because we're paying one dude the job, why, a firm you would think would be somewhat, a little bit cheaper, I would.
Yeah,
I
right.
guess the easy way to say it is we spend 15 grand for auditors to do that work, and it's like 2 weeks of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's upper
But that's an
level.
audit, that isn't.
I mean,
That isn't books.
we hire a firm and they've got interns
Yeah.
and students from
Yeah.
a finance college that are doing all the work.
I think it's also
But
great,
it's the day to day.
great that we have,
Who's going to be there day to day
Yeah.
to move these numbers around and move the
Do
funds
they?
and
around?
we have like David on call to say, hey, David,
David's
can
been
you
great.
check this thing out? And he'll say, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just great, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah,
It might
he's
be
awesome.
worthwhile to discuss it with a CPA's office and ask them what
What
they
they would
would
charge for a
charge.
city of our size,
Yeah.
ours.
It's only $6 million. I
But
mean,
is a CPA, don't CPAs do, do they do like the financial direction stuff, like coming up the budget as opposed to just doing accounting and taxes and stuff? Oh, I don't know, because I think of them
Tim
as
has a question.
accountants.
Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, so you guys, a lot of you have already forgotten how much it costs not having a finance director. We spent over $100,000 on an audit because we didn't have a finance director. I don't think a firm can do this. They got to prepare an audit every year. They got to prepare a budget every year. They got to bring us finances every month. They got to answer every question we have when we talk about financing anything and everything. We need somebody right there in that office. I'm leaning towards a full-time finance director and a half-time city administrator, to be honest with you. That's my personal opinion. I mean, we paid $100,000 last year for an audit that should have cost us $15,000. There's our money right there to hire.
That's it. That's where the
we
meeting
recoup that.
money went.
But if we didn't spend that, then
We
Plus,
would have it for the
we have to
finance
spend
director.
for that other accountant that didn't work out. I mean, it seems like there's been money spent like that was penny wise, pound foolish. So that's.
And
Has anybody
David's
asked
doing,
David what he thinks?
Yeah, I did ask him today what he thought, and he thought this was a really good idea, and that we have to put out a lot of money in order to get somebody who can do the job. That's what he
Did
thought.
he think he could do it halftime? That it could be a halftime job or?
Yes, I can.
He's
read
doing
to
it
you
accordingly
exactly
right now at
because
halftime
what
job.
he
David's
said.
doing halftime, plus he's doing these two audits,
Right.
And he's still accomplishing.
and he's still doing that.
Oh,
So
right.
when those audits and all that gets cleared up and we didn't get in that position again, how much accounting do we really need?
He said, I
still have a
agree that by combining the wage, you will have a better package to offer and may be able to find an experienced candidate. Port Orford is small enough that the city should be able to combine the positions. There are other small towns that have done that successfully, but they do hire a contractor to do the audit prep.
There's all kinds of, so I Googled this, so it's got to be accurate.
I Googled it earlier today.
But there are countless offers for firms to do what we're asking. It's not new. We're not trying to, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's good for us or what it costs or anything like that, but it's not uncommon from what I see.
I mean, remember,
I think we should research that further.
yes.
Definitely
I thought
research.
that was a good idea before of hiring a firm, but I would love to see if that's going to be the thing.
I think the other thing is that we have David actually doing some, I think he has been working to help train Dina on some tasks that she didn't do in the past before the whole latest transition. And so anyway, I kind of like the idea of having our own finance in-house person because I like the idea of our city employing local people or having another community member as opposed to outsourcing. And
Yeah.
anyway,
We have people here though.
a firm, you mean a local firm could do it, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure we could. All right. What are we doing?
So I guess it sounds like, we could we could decide to try to fly it, or we can say we don't want to fly it and that we have to do all this other research first.
We could fly it and then still look for a firm just to get that information.
Exactly.
And
we
might
can curtail
we might not have to use that information if we find the right person. But in the meantime, we could be doing both.
My big thing is
I like that.
I personally don't want to accept it tonight for the sole fact of the way it was written on that last page.
But we're not doing an ordinance.
The ordinance, yeah, as long as we don't do the ordinance, it's
flying
fine.
the job.
And we should look to see how common that is. I just don't recall We didn't do Joseph's by ordinance, did we?
It would have been, if you look on the thing, there's an ordinance right below it.
Oh, it was an ordinance.
If you look at the very last page of that.
I asked you if you, that's when I asked.
That's actually codification of.
Because we're changing a job description.
That's,
Is that an ordinance worthy of changing a job description?
I mean, I'm sure he has his reasons.
Well, have you ever seen an ordinance for a job description in any of the job descriptions that we have? It does, you ever seen one that says ordinance or resolution?
Well, you know, one of the
XX?
things that I think is the case with John is since he worked as a municipal attorney for like 10 or whatever, many years, that he sometimes has the process that doesn't necessarily mean it's been the way we've done it before.
Right,
You know,
right.
because he has.
The way and the way we've done it, are two different things sometimes.
Yeah.
This is the way, our way, and then the right way.
Yeah.
He
Okay,
tends to
so
go with the legal, you know, he's got the legal orientation.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're flying the job maybe and having John look at some firms that could be doing the
With the
financing.
corrections that Ann stated. Or do you just want to wait till the end, wait to our next meeting to get it all in paper in front of us and have this discussion again?
It doesn't make sense to make a job description an ordinance because then you'd have to change it every time.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
I like the ordinance.
I don't like that either.
So one thing we could do is direct staff to advertise this job description at the rate that is on the ordinance. But no ordinance, nothing other than advertise
So you can
this
also
job
make a
description with your
window.
change, or with the changes at this rate.
It can say 40 to 120.
Exactly,
It doesn't
exactly.
have to say, you know, it can be,
Well, there is a scale though. You know, both of them have scales 1 to 10, so we can go the bottom to the top.
Exactly.
oh, yeah.
Are we obligated in any way though? If we advertise this and we have a qualified candidate at that rate and then we don't use them, is there any sort of?
No, no. And I'm like 99.9% sure of that.
Sorry, what?
Why don't we go low? Why don't we go 75? Like go 75,000 to the top of that scale. What was it? 136? That's a wide range. I mean, you're going to attract people getting into the trade young. You're going to attract maybe somebody that wants to move to the coast and has a lot of qualifications at 136 maybe. I don't know.
I don't really understand how the step scene works. I mean, isn't the step like, oh, if you stay, you kind of, your wage goes up. So would you ever hire somebody at the top? You'd hire them and then that would just be it. They would never go up again.
If it was the best, let's just say we got the finance guy, you know, of Oregon, and we got the city administrator that was top notch, and they could write grants. Yeah, you'd probably offer them the, you know, real close to the top. I would guess.
One-stop shop, like David had said, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I agree.
One other thing that might be helpful to add to that description is preference given to candidates who have grant writing skills.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Great. Yep. Good addition.
That's where I wonder if we get off the map a little bit, because it's like being a competent city administrator. I think that's almost like plugged in that you have some grant experience, or at least like John's doing, the ability to connect the dots or get the right people.
And you
on the
know,
job.
and
Like,
that's
that's the whole administrative thing is like, you don't necessarily have to do everything. You just got to make sure it's
we have
all done.
CDC and we have League of Oregon Cities. We have all these other
Yes.
resources for grants for people. And they advise us when there are grants that come through for us, you know, I mean, we have these other resources. I think having.
And
a
when I
full-time
read
grant person-
like grant writing from this capacity, I see like the things that come across your desk or the smaller grants and stuff that you can pick up and hammer out in a week or something. But when you're talking about millions of dollars or like the BRIC grant, we don't have the time for an administrator to do that. We learn, like, even if they were the best, we can't like gut the rest of the city to do that, which it was I mean, you're gambling for $38 million, so it was justified, but.
But here it says in here, provide leadership and direction in such areas as major projects and long-range capital programs. So it's kind of, we could say, you know, including grant writing, including grants or something. I mean, if we wanted to, but to me, that's implied in there. To do major projects, long-range capital programs, you have to be working with grants.
Well, and it's all about the hiring process too. We know what we want, and we will know from the answers we get that
Right.
we're gonna prefer.
Right.
I'll just be happy if we get some people replying. This is the first.
Right.
Well, that's the part about also including the low end of it, you know.
Okay, so just to move through this, we could entertain a motion to direct staff to advertise this job description with discussed changes at a rate of $90,000 to $130,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so
We're gonna have
discussion real quick is it seems to me like when you put these two together, you're creating a very specialized position. And we're less likely to find, if we're talking about, we're having a hard time getting qualified candidates for this and that. Now you're asking for a qualified candidate in two highly, that seems kind of counterintuitive to me. I don't.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's the fact that we're putting finance/city administrator. Why can't we put city administrator with all the job description of your responsibilities? Your responsibilities just happen to be half financial and half administrator, but
I think the reason he said he put it that way is because if you just said city administrator, you wouldn't get the people who have the financial chops. So, I mean, we could take, I mean, the way I'm seeing it now is we could try the other tack also, which is to have, you know, break it up and have the part-time administrator for, you know, 40,000 and the administrator for 70, which is what John is working for, 75, because he's retired and he can afford to work really
Which
for
opens up
less.
more applicants would be likely.
But
If
no.
I'm retiring and going to the coast and I feel like maybe taking on some part-time work, but I don't want to be strapped to that desk and tie, you know, for the rest of my life, you know, maybe I'd take on a part-time job. I just think that we're just like chiseling away at our potential applicants by these specifics that.
To me, I think we're starting out with trying to go for like the best applicant, putting out a high wage, trying to get somebody who's really good, has professional competency. If it doesn't work, if nobody shows up, then we go to plan B and then maybe we divvy it up. And I think what you were saying is why don't we have a divvy it up, a plan B that we're floating concurrently?
Well, I just say, why not advertise 3 positions? One for the CFO, one for the city administrator, and one for the hybrid, and see what comes. Because now you've opened up all those opportunities. Just to me, you're just kind of, you're broadening your brush.
You're putting more lines.
Making more fluid,
Yeah,
kind
right.
of.
But I wonder how that looks like, just like if you
To
put
the
it out
applicants.
to the applicants and you see, okay, here's a CFO for 90,000 and oh, here's the hybrid CFO city admin for 100 up to 130 and here's the part-time CFO for
Sounds like
40.
we don't know what we want.
Well, I think we went around and I think we know what we want.
But to an applicant
But it's the
reading
money.
this, it's like.
yeah, like it doesn't get too.
But a finance, so that's the other part of it is when you go in and you're looking like, okay, I'm looking for a job and I want to be a CFO. I'm not looking at city administrator. That's 4 pages away, you know? I'm looking at my specialized field. And then same for the administrator, he's looking at this page over here and he's not looking over here.
I think you'd do a search for either one and then this one would come under both. And then you'd get a chance to get people who are looking for both, I think. But
This is kind of semantics, but would it be better for this document to say city administrator / finance director versus finance
I
director?
like the way, John said that earlier, the way he wrote it, finance / that it was more of an important thing for the finance director than the administrator. According to what John said, that's why he wrote it that way.
Right, but
I don't agree with that, like you said.
I don't agree with that.
You agree the other way?
I think we could hire out one and not the other. And that kind of actually applies some sort of a value.
I mean, you think we could hire out the finance person
I
on the
think, yeah, you
side?
couldn't like,
Yeah.
you know,
I agree with that.
privatize the other,
Your motion is second, right? Do you want me to rescind my motion?
you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we do have a motion in a second. So you guys,
I think we could do it 2 different ways. One is, you know, we could do this sequentially. The whole like float this, see what happens. And or say we want to pursue two concurrent things, and then we could come back and John would say, well, that's not going to work because blah, blah, blah. Or he could say, sure, let's do it. And then we would have to come up with that other description at the same time.
But we can also accept this to get the ball rolling and then
Yes.
add those other two
Yes.
descriptions next.
I agree.
Right now, we're trying to appease Dave Johnson, I think.
What's that?
Isn't that what we were faced with? Dave
Yeah.
need, okay.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing is we
So,
need, there's multiple.
Somebody call Dave and
reasons
say,
that we
what do
need
you,
this
what-
process started.
no, I mean, it's, yeah. And
We're
then
gonna make John and David happy by.
and then
float
move
some.
forward as we see fit.
And we can keep tweaking it as we go.
I
but
want to
at
be
least we've
sure
got
that,
something
that
going.
We could learn. I mean, nobody could, nobody could respond and or, I seem to remember you guys saying last year or whenever it was when we were first talking about this or when I came on that you had a really hard time finding any finance person. It was almost impossible. Qualified finance person.
Oh, yeah, middle of
So-
COVID, everything. It's hard to find employees
there
right
was a
now.
bunch of money floating around. Nobody wanted to work.
Yeah.
So, I think floating this idea and then just seeing where we land is an okay option. We're not.
We need to
We're
be
meeting in 2 weeks.
sure, we need to be
So-
sure that we
Right.
hold the reins.
So
This
that
council,
motion
this
kinda
council
holds up
needs to
still, I
take
think,
charge
then?
of, we can't let employees tell us what we're gonna do, period, full stop. And if it hurts feelings and stuff,
Period.
then that sucks.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can,
Responsible.
we are the responsible party. And here we go again with my speech, but we're the ones. And so that's all.
And we hire the staff person that we hope we develop a relationship with trust with so that we can say, hey, because none of us as an individual can write the job description or, there are different things that individuals of us can do and bring to council, but we say to them, hey, bring us something. And then we tear it apart, as Pat says.
That's
or
what
do
our job
whatever.
is.
Yeah.
That's what our job is.
So, but they do have to bring, ideally they bring us something and we develop eventually or hopefully at some point, some trust and.
And every 2 years that changes. That's a terrible job. That job is terrible. Who would, Pat's one of them guys too.
Don't let them know.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
Our job. I wonder if it's.
Your leaders change every 2 years. The whole direction of the whole thing can change every 2 years. It's a political position, like it or not.
Yep.
God, I'm an idiot.
Yes, you are.
So do we have it sounds like we.
Yeah, we do have a
I'm
motion
all
in a
right.
second, and it sounded like it's still held up with the changes that we've discussed. We're kind of
And then Joseph got those changes.
rolling with it.
Joseph, yeah.
Okay. And the motion was to direct staff to put this job description out. That is not to accept this ordinance, just to clarify. So I'll go ahead and call for the vote on that. Tim?
Tim, yes.
Ann?
And yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Brett?
Webb, yes.
And Gary?
Yes.
No, we switched to first names after 8:30.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
I want to be out of here before midnight.
Yeah, let's.
Who knows what we switch then?
What are you gonna call me in 5 minutes?
Okay, so good. The ball is rolling on that finally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now this is where it's going to get kind of weird. Second reading, ordinance 2023-25,
That is.
amending ordinance 2022-04. So it would be the second reading and then
Make a motion.
I think I can read it by title.
Yes, because it's a second reading. You gotta read the whole one. We had to read the whole one because it was one in one.
Emergency, yeah.
It was in one session. This is two. We've already read,
Oh, yeah, right.
So weird, because I thought you could read it by title.
If there's not changes.
There's not substantial changes.
I make a motion to pass the amending of ordinance 2022-04 regarding water curtailment.
Second.
2023.
2020. Oh,
And there's been no changes to that.
Oh,
So, wait a second.
It's what we discussed last time, but I do have something to bring
You
up
read
and
it after
discuss.
the amendment, right?
We passed it last time after some amendments.
Okay, and we're not asking to amend anything now.
Well, I'm going to ask to amend something
Oh,
right
then
now.
it'll have to be read.
Well, I'm asking to amend something that's very tiny, and you guys may blow it off, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, because I tried to bring it up last time and it was hard for me because I was, officiating at the meeting to fully advocate. So I'm perfectly comfortable passing this as it is, but I just want to bring something up to you guys so you understand, so we really make sure we hear this, which is, at the last time I brought up about this does not apply to existing wells. I was asking for that change. And John Huddle said, oh no, it should be wells existing, applied for, or under contract at the time of this ordinance, because if people are in progress, we can't do that. So that's a legal concern. I just sort of said, yeah, okay, I understand that. I guess we can't do it. But afterwards, I was thinking about it again. And some of you may have heard that, we got the dredging permit in, but then it came back as incomplete. So, it's going to be like, we're probably not going to get it happening next summer. It might be another summer. Who knows how long it's going to take to get this. We had 10. We think we know we have 6. We may have 10 or 12 by the end of this year, wells that are coming on. We could have another 10 next year. If every one we don't have on means that we are losing, we rectified the SDC fees, but everyone that we don't require to come back into the system, that means we are permanently losing the income that goes to our base rates and to our operating fees. I asked David about that revenue. It's about, if for every 10, it's about $6,000 a year. So over 10 years, that's 60,000. For 20 years, it's 120,000. So yeah, I just am putting it out there. I went to talk to John. I said, could we have some compromise? Again, what about existing wells or wells that are, where you've already applied for the building permit or whatever? And he just said, well, make it's kind of a legal thing versus a financial thing. And he suggested maybe we could come back in the future and do something with the finances. But I just wanted to tell you guys that because I'm thinking about the long-term finances. We're scraping here when we know we might come up short $50,000 in a couple of years. And then here, this is money that we're basically just not, we're writing off. So anyway,
But this isn't for future, this is just for the ones that are already in.
This is just for the ones, this one exempts the ones that are existing wells, applied for or under contract, will never have to come into our system. They are going to be exempt because these requirements to pay SDC fees, to come back in 24 months are not going to apply to any of those.
Well, they still have to pay the sewer side of it.
They have to pay the sewer side of it,
There's
but
a hookup,
that's,
there's substantial cost there, right?
well, that goes to pay for our sewer system. That's
But that's
base.
good, right? But
Yeah.
I'd just say it again, I think maybe partnering with people that have water is good for a city with no water.
Well, we're not saying that people can't do wells. I'm just saying we have to pay for our water system. So anyway, I just am telling you that if people want to pass this,
But once it was passed, in any future, we'll have to back in.
yes.
So
Yep.
we're only missing the ones that.
We're only missing the ones that are currently in progress, that are existing, people that have applied for, which I don't really know what applied for actually means, or under contract
As of the date of that reading?
is the date of when we adopt
Today.
this. So if we adopt this today,
Today's ordinance.
so there's a 3-year waiting list
So
right
the
now.
wait
apparently.
wouldn't really matter.
What?
The wait wouldn't matter.
What wouldn't matter?
The wait, if it took, if it takes 2 more years to get the dredge permit, that wouldn't really matter because the end date's today.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
So then it doesn't really apply?
Well, if people have already applied or under contract,
But it's finite. I mean, we know what that is. It's not infinite. It's not.
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, I'm all for getting this passed because I think it does help us get onto firmer ground. But I'm just saying we could end up, there could be 20 in the pipeline, let's say, including the ones. And so
that
That's
we
what we're,
just
that's what we're
miss.
doing. That's the
Uh-huh.
balance that we're doing. We're foregoing that revenue to, you know, be super fair to those people. So just explaining that. It's always a balance.
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Joseph, you had a comment?
Just really quick, I'm fairly certain it would actually come into effect 1 month after the
Oh.
second reading because there's an appeal period.
Okay, very
Okay.
good.
It's
Very
it's
good.
still
Thank you.
limited, so you're correct, Commissioner Webb. I just wanted to make that quick
Excellent.
clarification.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Joseph. Okay.
So, and you know, wells are a pain in the butt. So a lot of people that live in a city are going to transition, you know, to the city when they sell their house, or I'm sick of testing this, or I can't rent it out because I have to fight with it all the time.
But we,
And not all the wells are a given around here, you know, as far as the quality, but
so when we, so in your ordinance that you, that, well, that wasn't a big part of that. And again, my apologies, but they still have to hook up to the sewer and they have to pay that portion of the SDC, right?
Well, the SDC, they have to pay. Yeah.
So, all right, S is for sewer.
It's
Well,
for system,
Oh,
actually,
system,
development
system,
costs.
okay.
development, but they're two different things.
Okay, right, and they're two
Sewer
different line
and
items,
water
so I mean,
SDC.
like, the loss part of it, so then you're just asking them, shut down your well, and the difference would be 6 or 7
Not to
thousand.
shut it
You
down.
don't have to
They
shut
could
it
keep
down.
No,
using
no,
it.
no, I mean, you would have to join, right?
Right, the system.
But my point would be like, okay, I'm buying this house, it's got a well, they're a pain in the butt. For $6,000, I can, buy into this miserably failing infrastructure and debt. I'm no businessman or mathematician, but, well, I guess I do have a little business there. Anyway, my point is that doesn't sound like a very good buy.
Well,
I mean, it
and
seems
that's
like it would,
that's the whole point of it. So if we all just said, you know, screw it. We hate this, you know, the city water system, it sucks. It's got leaks. I don't want to be part of it. Let's just like all of us, you know, let's just screw it. Let's, you know, that's kind of we have to stick together as a community. And that's what this whole thing is about, is recognizing we all have to invest in it. That's part of what we have to do. And I will just tell you, I've been working my butt off to try to figure out how we're going to fix this water system
yeah,
because we need to fix it.
we do.
And we got to get it back on track instead of just having this idea of like, oh, well, it's just going to decay and well, we can't expect people to pay for it. And then, I mean, that's just not the way to go.
No, we,
So anyway, I'm comfortable. We have a first and second. If nobody else is bothered by that, and I'm the only one who's trying to think about the cost, I just want to point it out to you guys that that's part of what we're doing when everybody's always talking about how fiscally responsible they are. I just want to like point this out. We're making a decision here that's fiscal.
we can sell sewer service though.
Barry.
So do we have any exposure if we don't do that? If we take it out, do we have any legal exposure to those people who have applied or have existing wells?
We could. And so I asked John about that and he said, well, we got to ask Shayla. Well, guess what? Shayla's not been at our meeting. So I don't really feel like we have, I'm frustrated we don't have an option. I don't have an answer for that. So I guess I am recommending we pass this, but I would
Be remiss if you did not voice your concern.
I would be remiss if I did not voice my concern and if I did not say that if this water, you know, that in the future, we may have to find ourselves coming back and saying we're going to have to pick up some of these people with fees. Yeah.
But what do we, yeah, I'm uncomfortable about it, not knowing what the legal ramifications are of that myself.
Well, we have, this is what John recommended, this
Right.
language.
Oh, I know that, but.
Yeah.
Shayla didn't have a problem with it. She was here the last meeting.
Yeah.
We passed the first.
This one.
First readings of it.
There's others, Shayla had some other opinions, on
Right, and
some
we
water
addressed her.
issues
We
also.
addressed the other, Shayla's other things.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other stuff that we have our pants down on and I've sort of talked to the administrator about it and to the mayor about it and a couple of, no, I haven't talked to anybody else about it. But there's other stuff that has happened that does have our pants down. And there's merit to some complaints that are floating around and we get sued for $1 million and we're done.
Right. So this Shayla has seen, we can go for it. I'm just telling you, I just had to voice my opinion about, I feel like we have to pay attention to these things and we have to think of ourselves as a community. So
Agree.
I think we can pass this if everybody feels comfortable with it. I don't have a better solution where I could guarantee you that we're not going to be, not have our pants down. So I think this is a good first step. It gets us where we need to go. And I think it helps. So.
But are we going to be able to change this later?
Yes, we can always amend an ordinance.
Well, right, except
You
the
won't be
people
able to
that
go
it
back.
affects, are they going to sue us?
Yeah, but it's only 20. It's 20
That's
people.
my,
What we
Well,
could,
right, so Ann, it's just to be really super clear, it's let's say it's about 20 people that are out there right now that would fit into this niche. And they are still required to pay us their money for the sewer and the monthly for the sewer. So it would basically be, if you look at your water bill, most of it's the sewer, I think. Isn't
no,
it?
it's at least $400 fixed rate. When I had David run the numbers today, he said it's more like, if you figure the usage into based on average use, it's more like $680 per year per household. So if it's 10 households, it's like $6,000 to $7,000 a year, and then over 10 years, then that's where you get to $70,000 for our revenue that we're losing. But what we could do in the future is we could go back and have a fee. We could add, I mean, the thing that I think that's not fair about that is we're not letting people know ahead of time. Then we would go back later and say, hey, we're going to have to impose a fee because we need to have more revenue to pay for our water system. That may be coming anyway if we end up doing a rate study and we find out we're actually charging rates that are not paying for our system. I don't know.
That goes two ways too, though. We're not allowed to profit either.
Well, we are in so, I mean, we're going to spend $70 million to not even fix half of our water system. So I don't think we have to worry about profiting.
Well,
No, and that's the other
it's
side
been
of that
abused.
SEC discussion. Like, we could charge everybody $20,000 today, and it works out to like six, or no, it was five. Yeah, no, it was 10,000. We charged everybody 10 grand a day. It's only close to 6 million, which wouldn't fix our water system, but it's all a gain, and we don't want to lose any money.
Right.
But
We need every little bit helps us, but it helps us. Like, to me, I see like 70,000 when John Isidore comes in and says, oh my God, we need a new pump up at the reservoir and it's going to cost 40,000. And then we need a new SCADA, or we need this or that. And it's like 40,000 here, 60,000 there. That's the kind of thing where
well,
I think
the nice
these,
little cherry on top of that is that SDC money you can't just use for a pump station or a replacement.
No.
It's very specifically for upsizing the system.
right. But that's why this other money,
the
which
monthly
is the
fee.
monthly base rates, is why that's important. That's what we're forgoing, because we are picking up the SDC fees here, but only for the future ones, not. So we're missing for these 20, we're missing the SDC fees and we're missing the base rate and the use fees. So anyway, I don't mean to belabor
Are we
this.
though? Are we?
Yeah,
Well,
because
because
that,
we're gonna sell them, so they have their own water.
Yeah.
But they gotta go, it's gonna go into our sewer.
well, they pay the sewer SDC and they pay the sewer fees, but there's water SDCs
Right,
and
right.
water
Okay,
fees.
right.
So that's like actually at least as much, if not more.
I don't have my bill with me, but yeah,
It's more like, it's based on what David calculated, it's an average of between
Did he
$600 and
calculate it, or
$700.
did he go like this?
I wrote him an email and asked him, and he
Okay,
did a little
all right.
calculation
Okay,
for
all
me,
right.
because I told him I wanted to tell you guys that it
That
wasn't
number.
just the back of my envelope, it was
Yeah.
the back of his envelope.
I think it's a napkin. It was.
Okay. So,
Okay. So are we doing our second, so there was a motion to accept, or the motion for the second reading?
Motion for the second reading.
Okay.
We've already.
Ordinance 2023-25, amending city ordinance 2022-04 regarding water curtailment, authorizing wells on private property and city limits, providing for sunsetting, therefore codified ordinances chapters 13.05. Whereas the Common Council of the City of Port Orford has enacted Port Orford Municipal Code, Chapter 15, known as the City of Port Orford Water Curtailment Code, and whereas Section 1305-100 said chapter sets forth standards for new water services, and whereas it is the desire of the City council to provide for an alternative method of providing potable drinking water to support new development during the period of said curtailment. And whereas it is the intent of the city council to provide for said alternative on a temporary basis until the water curtailment emergency is resolved. Now therefore be it ordained by the common council for the city of Port Orford Amendments Ordinance 2022-04 Code Chapter 13.05 is amended as attached on Exhibit A, adopted and incorporated hereto.
Is this Exhibit A? It doesn't say Exhibit A on it, so.
I assume so. It must be. Did you say that, Joseph?
Is this Exhibit A, Nathan?
It doesn't coincide though.
And, you know, sorry, but I think we need to know for sure.
Yeah, the ordinance says 13-05-0100 and this says 13-05-041.
I said,
On the
I think
exhibit.
I think the 0100, I think is was the curtailment, wasn't it? Isn't this like a subsection of what we already had or something maybe?
I believe so, and then that's in its an exhibit because it has the amendments you made at the last meeting bolded and underlined.
Oh, good. I like it when you do that. I didn't notice.
Fairly certain it's Exhibit A, and Exhibit A is the previously amended ordinance, I believe.
Yeah, I see
With all
it.
due respect,
I see it.
I'm not comfortable voting for something. It's nothing against Joseph or anybody else, but that it doesn't say Exhibit A on it. I just think that's reckless.
I thought it was 2023 dash something was the ordinance number, I thought.
There's
2023-25, that's at the top of the ordinance.
Right, yeah.
Amending 2022-04.
It'd be good to write in there that you can amend this by resolution too, you know, that's awful handy. I like it when they're written that way.
It is what we discussed last time. This was initially brought forth in May. It was went to the Planning Commission. It was passed by the Planning Commission. It was brought back here. We tabled it. We didn't deal with it for months. I brought forth a workshop that we discussed it for 2 hours. We brought it here last time, and there were some minor adjustments that had to be made, including some things that had been left out for the original thing, that very thing at the end. Number 4 was the thing that was in the original. There were some minor things, number 2 and 5, that we adjusted based on Shayla's recommendation. And so to me, it all looks squared up, quite honestly.
Yeah, Shayla just had problem with, she said something about the transfer of property. If we went to the sale, she recommended the 2-month, but I can't remember why.
2 years.
Yeah.
That's 2 years. That's on here.
Yep.
2 years, correct. I'm sorry.
And with amendments. That looks right to you, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
So now we need another motion to approve it if it's so?
What, do we have a motion to, we had a motion to not?
No, I
So
guess you approve the second reading and then it's.
Greg made a motion.
Made a motion, it was second. Now we need to vote on that motion. We already read it, now we need to vote.
I think what you do is, it's a motion to read it is what it is.
Yeah, that's why I was.
It's a motion to read it, so, then, was that your motion? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, the motion was
No, what
to
we're saying,
read it.
Greg, is that the motion was to read it. And because it was the 2 reading thing, I was unsure on, or not 100% on, do we have to make a motion to read it and then make a motion to accept it? Because technically, you made that motion and then I read it anyways without the vote. So maybe we should just take the 2 seconds to rescind them and then fire them back off.
I rescind my motion.
I rescind my second.
Okay.
It's supposed to go in the other order.
So can I make a motion to just pass the ordinance 2023-25, which will amend city ordinance 2022-04 regarding water curtailment.
Correct.
Isn't that what we just did?
Yeah.
We were shooting for that, but it didn't work out because the mayor.
So if that's gonna do it, then I will.
Okay, any discussion on that? All right, I'll call for the vote. Tim?
Tim, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Perry?
Yes.
Ooh, you wanted to.
Grudgingly.
So bad. You should have it when it's.
Okay, so
Helped you sleep tonight.
now we got considerations. Citizen considerations? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Andrew Perry. I'm a city employee. I want to establish I'm a city employee. I'm also the shop steward for our collective bargaining unit. I'm speaking on my behalf. I'm not representing the city and what I have to say here tonight. So I had this huge long document written out that I was going to share here, then I decided not to. So I was kind of trying to take notes back there on my phone. So first thing I want to address real quick is I feel it was very inappropriate for Administrator Pro Tem Huddle to call out an employee. Essentially,
We got to be really careful about anything
Okay.
employee-wise. I am not trying to curtail anything at all, but
I feel an employee was thrown under the bus and that was inappropriate in public forum. So I want to just note that I feel that was inappropriate. So I'll move on from that. So basically, I feel like what we're looking for with a city administrator and finance director, add to that a supervisor, somebody who's able to supervise people. It's kind of like looking for a unicorn. I feel there's a real possibility that taking 2 full-time jobs, I'm sure if you asked any people who previously filled those jobs, those are full-time jobs. Taking those, putting them together and paying just a little bit more, it might actually make it harder for us to find somebody. Because you're instead of asking for 2 separate people to come get slightly underpaid, you're asking one person to do both of these jobs, get equally or more underpaid to do both of them. So that could actually extend the process of finding somebody who on top of it is a good leader, good supervisor, somebody who's able to make the city cohesive. Also, as far as the concerns, I'm going to backtrack a minute. As an employee and a union steward and somebody who plans on being here for quite some time, I make it my business to read the policies, read the charter, know what's going on to the best of my ability. So that being said, the education pay idea, there's actually a policy regarding that in the policy manual, the 2016 one. So that was I believe that was in the city administrator and finance director job description. Also, as long as I've been here, I don't remember there ever being a job description voted on. It's kind of an internal procedural matter from my time here. Let's see. I had talked to Joseph earlier and I apologized up front if I said anything that offended him. He does a great job. He does his job well. The idea of combining the recorder and the planner, thank you, great idea. I think it's important to note that he's the planning assistant, not the planner. I believe we have a contract planner, so that should be considered in that job description. Also, sorry, Joseph, the mistake with that ordinance you just read was a perfect example of somebody being inexperienced in their job. He's doing great. He's learning it. He's
really
picking it
got
up. What was
to be
that?
careful with our conversation.
Okay.
It should be directed
about council.
Okay.
To council.
I'm trying to present considerations is if I do get out of line, correct me because I don't do this often.
No, and that's all we're doing. And technically,
Yeah.
I shouldn't even be bantering back and forth with you. You know, it's like, come up, get your 3 minutes and go. But because of the
Please
situation.
do correct me if I get off track and I'm saying something I shouldn't be saying. I think with the proposal for the city recorder and planning assistant, I do believe that's a union position, and we've been required to use certain cities with certain populations. I think 1,534 population was the highest we were allowed to use. So I don't think it would be wildly out of the ordinary to create the job position, present it to the union, and come up with the wages in a similar fashion as to the rest of the employees.
Can you do that?
And
you as the steward, can you?
I think it would be appropriate for the city administrator to present it to the union and then for them to have a discussion about it. The reason I say that is
makes sense.
Can I talk about what my wages are? I make $27.98 an hour, or real close to that. If we use the same comparable data and the same mathematics that were used to come up with that comparable data, I'd be making $35.55. So my point being is the rest of the employees are paid under average. So applying a different formula to just one bargaining unit employee doesn't seem right. Last thing I wanted to talk on is with the water curtailment. I just wanted to make sure I understood that right, that the concern is that there's a potential that more could be lost over the long run by not having the base rate payments versus the SDCs. Was that correct?
I'll just try to explain it quickly. We had a long workshop about this. Basically, both of those things we've not really been requiring people to get wells to pay those things. So the question is, the point is to try to make sure that we figure out a way to do that for the people who are building in our city.
Okay, and one last thing and then I'll end here. I don't know if it's feasible, reasonable, or otherwise, but I don't know how many additional people would apply for wells in the next 30 days or month. So if the concern is losing money in the long run, it might be feasible to allow people to have their wells, do their wells, and then those who have wells, whenever the moratorium is lifted, be required to connect to city services, but without having to pay the SDCs, because a well is very, very, very expensive already. So you still, if they are required to connect, but they're not charged, then in the long run, you still get those base rates and water usage rates and all of that. So that could kind of mitigate that concern. I don't know, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other citizen concerns? Staff, Joseph, you got anything? I don't know. Come on.
Hi, Keely Perry. It's my first time speaking here, so if my voice shakes, I'm a little nervous.
Just calm down. We're all friends here.
I just want to clear up some confusion. Being one of the people on the panel with Gary Burns during when we hired Joseph, his position was not the accounting assistant. Dina is the accounting assistant, and she has been for, I think, almost 8 years. He was hired as a part-time accountant. It was never a full-time position. Just like Pat had kind of said, he was kind of swung into things when everything was going on. The fact is that since I am also a union steward for the admin part of this as well. And we weren't able to use those big of cities. We were told that we couldn't even use Curry County in that type of stuff because Curry County is massive. So to be able to put it toward what all of the employees should be making and what our job descriptions are and everything else, it needs to be looked at because like Andrew Perry said, we are going off of smaller cities like Rockaway Beach, and I think Cannon was in there. I believe Drain was in there, and I can't remember the other three right now. So those ones were brought up during the union discussions. And the other thing is that it, like Greg was saying, that it does need to be taken into fact that you have to be able to have the training. You have to, like Brett was saying, you have to be able to have the training and then be, I guess, given the opportunity to go to school, or if it requires that school, it would be more helpful because there are positions in public works and stuff like that that do require more training, and city recorder or something like that, planner, it would require a lot more training. So, and then the other thing that was in the city administrator and the finance director, they should be split. The finance director has usually been the city, or not the city manager, sorry, the office manager, so that there's not a conflict of interest. So if the city administrator does not have full control over the employees, there would be a buffer. So the finance director, David Johnson, would have been the buffer between like Patty and Dina. And then if there was anything else that needed to go above David, then it would go to Terry. And there does need to be that buffer there so that there's accountability, like those checks and balances that you guys were talking about. And then under the court part that was brought up for the officers, technically the city administrator, any city administrator, cannot have authority over the municipal judge. There is a judicial branch and an executive branch, and the city administrator is the executive branch and the judge is the judicial branch. So just some considerations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keely.
Okay. Council, anything? Great.
I wanted to bring up the nature boardwalk, and we've got a sign saying that we have a nature boardwalk on the highway, and we currently don't and haven't for a while. So it seems like it'd be good to take that sign down until we sort that out.
Do you remember at the last meeting I mentioned that the Watershed Council proposed putting a sign up that said closed for repairs, like a sticker over the top of it?
Who
I
paid
brought-
for the sign?
I'll bring it up to Parks tomorrow.
And then
Parks meeting tomorrow.
we could just put the sticker over it and say closed for repairs, and that would
Who
be.
paid for the sign?
It's a joint effort.
Is it? And then,
There's like 6 people on that sign.
and then the walkway itself,
6 people,
six
6 different
entities or whatever.
Mostly it was spare ODOT money.
Okay.
From the previous project, I believe.
No one was.
So, I mean, do we need council direction for that?
Well, Greg said he'd just take it.
I'll talk to the Parks tomorrow. I'll bring it up at the Parks meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if, I don't think we need,
No, but I mean,
Would
why
they-
even bring it up? Can we just not direct staff to cover up that sign temporarily until we?
yeah. So,
I mean, it might be easier just to take the damn thing down, like you're saying, like depending, like whatever we got to do to make that sign decommissioned for now.
But then we'd have to put it back up.
Right, so
But I mean,
probably like direct staff to do what is ever easiest to fix the problem and let's move on with our.
It's just,
agenda.
and we just bolt it back on.
Somewhere out there, there's some dude with a bunch of money and he stops at every one of these things going down the coast. And he walks up to that one and he sees it dilapidated and he says, man, I'd like to give these guys some money to fix that thing.
we'll find them.
Yeah, why I'm saying, I mean, why wouldn't there be?
Yeah, maybe we've closed.
I'm saying, don't take the
closed
sign
vandalism.
down, put closed, I think would be better.
Closed for repairs.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we direct staff to put a closed for repairs sticker on the wetland walkway sign on Highway 101.
Second.
All right, Tim,
Tim, yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Brett,
Webb, yes.
and
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
All right, well, that was easy. Any other? Greg, you had a nice flyer there.
Just real quick, December 16th, we're gonna have another disc golf tournament. It'll be a toy fundraiser for the Port Orford Fishermen's treat that they have.
That's a great sign.
That's
That's
it.
great.
Yeah, the stamps will be, it's Santa Claus lowering presents on our crane, so I want to do a toy riot fundraiser for the kids of our town, so.
That is the coolest artwork.
Yeah.
Our cranes are that color.
It's exactly and the stamps on the disc will be the same thing of stamp with the crane and.
So that goes on the disc for the event as well. Very good.
I ordered more so that we could get some for the port and stuff. So. Thank you.
Have a hold down at the port.
Yeah, we could love that.
a lot of hazards. If it goes on a boat, it's done. All right. Anyone else? Ann?
I have a couple of things. Do you want to go? Okay. First of all, I wanted to just mention that a couple weekends ago, Linda Tarr and I took a walk up on our watershed land. If you guys recall, was it last summer, the adjacent land, maybe it was 2 summers ago, the adjacent landowner was burning and then had a fire that burned into our land. So we went up to just investigate that encroachment, look into gorse, and see what was going on. While I was up there, the adjacent landowner has cleared the whole land and is apparently preparing to put in like a horse farm up there.
Oh, nice.
And I called up the Oregon Department of Forestry to just ask about, well, what happens with conversions from forest or forestry grazing land to, like when somebody wants to put in something else. And she told me, oh, well, I'm paying attention to Bagley Creek on the other side. I'm going to make that landowner plant trees over there. And now that I know it's the watershed for your city, I'll try to encourage that on your side. But the county also has to do paperwork related to this conversion. And so you might want to call them. So I asked John Huddle if I could make that call. He said, oh, you have to go and ask the council if you can make that call. So I just wanted to ask you guys if you would feel comfortable if I call the county planner and say, hey, if it's possible to make a requirement that guy plants a riparian buffer around the headwaters of our river as part of this conversion, or the headwaters of our, is that okay? So anyway, that's what I would like to do.
Can I get a quick consensus on that for Ann to make that call?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can just.
You good, Tim? With Ann calling?
We can tell them we don't want
Okay.
to do it.
Tim, yes.
Well,
Tim.
You're good.
Reach out to us.
Well, I don't think we can do that.
Well, you can.
So, and you're good.
You are authorized.
Okay, great. I wanted to bring up again, let's see, what else did I want to tell you? We have been working on the police levy. I gave a talk yesterday at the senior center, and Wiz and I worked on getting signs out and some letters to the editor. So we've been doing some work to try to make that happen because I think it's so important that we get funding for our police. I was going to ask if John was here. We had heard a while back that we have this $750,000 that Senator Smith has gotten us for this outfall. And it seems to me like we should probably ask for a workshop about that so we can understand it better. So I don't know if you guys, I was going to ask John if he's ready to give us information on it, but.
We should, because it's something if we have to use that, it's just like a regular grant money where we have a certain amount of time to use it. So we need to get that ball rolling if that money's there, you know what I mean? So
I was going to ask our staff member or ask Administrator Huddle if he has enough information yet to arrange a workshop on that topic for us.
I'm sure we could ask the senator to attend that meeting to get.
Why do we need a senator to attend that meeting?
Well, I'm just saying, well, okay, we don't have to. I'm just saying.
I mean, because it's a workshop with us and we have been getting steered a lot. So that's why we kind of want to get to the bottom of it.
Do we need more information?
Well, I think if you recall, we directed staff to get more information for us, and that was a couple of meetings ago. So what I'm saying is I think we need to, at this point, say, did you get that information? And if so, if we have it, let's get a workshop together on it.
Because there's people waiting on applications and documents. And so we're.
So anyway, that's that. Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up with the administrator who's not here, so maybe we'll just wait till next time, is that I guess I'll just wait till next time.
Oh, gonna leave us hanging?
Well,
you're all pumped.
I was
gonna
gonna
make me
say,
wait for a month.
I really want to clarify, we got the news that our city attorney is going to resign at the end of the year. And that's another big hire that is going to be, I believe, under the purview of the administrator. I mean, and so I just wanted to understand that process and talk about that process and what are we going to do, because that's a really important role.
We should be advertising already.
And I want to,
Because we only have a month left. She's done in January, right?
yeah. So, already it seems like we've kind of missed her presence at a couple of meetings. I think she's super busy, has other things happening. And so it feels like we need to get on that. So I wanted to kind of prioritize that.
Good.
And what else to say? Just I was going to say, I think at the last meeting we had asked the administrator to come back with some estimates for working on the brick grant from Marlin at Civil West. And we did not quite get those estimates yet, but Pat and John and I and John Isidore have met again, and we're going to try to keep moving along a little bit on this, because I think turns out Marlin needs more information to come up with an actual estimate, of what it would entail. But we're doing some analysis of the brick grant to try to figure out what we can do. And so anyway,
Doesn't it seem like that's things that should have been done on the first application? Like you put in an application and then you get a bad grade, and so now we have to pay more for a better grade? Like I would have paid for the A grade right up front if I would have known.
yeah, but the engineer was not writing that grant. Grant was written primarily by our administrator and the county employee that's not there. So
His application right there in that seat, though, that made me feel like he was working on that grant because he was promoting it.
Yeah.
That grant that scored badly. And I'm sorry.
he
I
worked
gotta
on,
be nicer to engineers.
my understanding of it is that he worked on all the cost estimates, and that he had a very short time and had to take all the cost estimates for all the things from our water master plan and put in go from 2014 values up to whatever. So I think that's the piece he worked on. Anyway, we're working on that. So I just wanted to kind of mention that's where we're at, so everybody knows. And I don't think we're going to move forward until we, get a little bit more information, but I still think it's worth pursuing. Some of the things that we've turned over have shown, we didn't explain certain things very well, so hopefully we can do better. That's it for me.
I would say, and anybody could object to that horse land up on top of anyone that drinks our water. Anybody, it doesn't have to be, because they reach out to neighboring properties, right? For that type of thing. I just commented on one myself, a zone variance or whatever you call it. But it doesn't need to just be the city. The city sure should have something to say about that, I think. But so would anybody that drinks the water.
And, we tried, if you recall, last year, which was before I was on council, if you recall, we were really trying to, to have some sort of special overlay or ask for some sort of overlay in our drinking water system for the surrounding uses. And we just got nowhere with the county. So, but I need to learn a little bit more about this conversion, because basically it used to be forest land. It was owned by industrial forestry. So then they go to ag.
And so there's a common way to do it is you take forestry, and to get it to residential, finally, you have to go to ag next.
Yeah.
And so that's what it sounds like. If I had to guess, his goal is probably to get that zone residential in the end.
Yeah. It's also, right now anybody who lives here, would be, of course, worried about a big open space that used to be forest is going to be a gorse field. But anyway, that's something.
I think you could tell all your friends to send the email to the planner that requests some sort of a fix.
Well, I'm going to try to do it on behalf of us, if you guys feel comfortable with that. And then I'll come back and I'll have more information. And if we need to write an official letter.
You don't have much time.
I know. That's why I was trying to asking John Huddle if I could just do it. And he said, no, you have to go to council.
But you can.
I would think I should have been able to do it personally.
You can object as a user.
Watershed liaison.
Well,
as long as just getting information, but Perry.
I just want to bring up that, and it was kind of touched on earlier, that during the end-to-end and homeless situation investigations of areas, it's become really obvious that the 16th Street is a real problem. And there is apparently several people who are living, I am told, several people living down there in the wetlands area that have no water and no electricity and no sewer, and that there is buckets of feces around down there.
The existing?
It's commonly referred to as the crab yard.
Oh,
Off of Jackson Street and down.
16th Street is an undeveloped property.
17th, thank you.
It is an undeveloped road that Lawrence Miller developed, and then he's developed. Well, he's the one that, and then he got it where it could be used by the adjacent property owner. And they vacated the street, the city did, and so now it's basically 16th Street itself kind of isn't even a street.
It's officially vacated because it looked like a street.
So they have a road in there, but some language previously, and I'm sure it's been changed, but back in Lawrence Miller days, if you cut down the trees and made a street, made it to where you could pass, then you could occupy that.
Because you
It's
upgrade or
whatever it was, something goofy.
Yeah, I think he was like 150 when he passed away. He had the first
700, I think. But him and Moses.
So that's my concern. And a lot of the neighbors feel the same way. And I'm not sure what we can do or if we can do anything, but I think we need to look into it.
You would think there'd be some zoning ordinance that requires you, if you're living in our town, to have some sort of sanitation. I mean, there is nothing like
Well,
that.
I think the people, the clients that we're talking about here probably would not be one to read the zoning code. Adherence might be even harder to come by. Compliance, I don't know which word that is.
All right, any other counselors? I don't have much.
You, man? You got anything?
Yep. 9:18, meeting adjourned.
Damn, dude, that was heavy on the hammer.
Yeah, really. I was like, like boom, an ear popper.
You should hear when I'm in here by myself at midnight.
Oh.
Sure.
If somebody can remember to ask John about an update from ODOT, that would be great.
They're not going to do nothing for us, Tim. That was just box checking.
Oh, yeah.